So I would like to call to order the special meeting of the Board of Selectmen. It's February 18th, 2026, and ask everyone to rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we have no public audience tonight because we have a lot of business to get to. I just got a text, Bob D is running 10 minutes late in traffic. Okay, I just wanna say thank you to, we have two big things to talk through tonight. We have the charter revision presentation, which is part of the planned schedule of things that we have to do for the charter. And then we're gonna follow that with the town manager's recommended budget, and hopefully we could take a 5-minute break in between. Not sure how much time you guys need, just asking. We're gonna ask questions, obviously, so just we'll figure out how that goes and Mark will go on. I do wanna just say a couple things. I gave the Board of Selectmen just the dates of the stuff that's going on, right? Because it's all based on a timeline that you guys well know. So we have 45 days from when we close this public hearing to discuss this, and then we have to turn it back to you guys. So I gave them the dates, potential dates of, we have a public hearing on the 23rd, we could keep it open to the 2nd or the 6th, like that's within the 45-day window. And then from any of those dates, we have to get it back to you within 14 days, and then you guys have 30 days or something like that. So this is the beginning of a process. And so I guess with that, I will turn it over to Chris Barnett, Chair of the Charter Revision Commission. And I see most of the members are here tonight, so thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Don't clap yet. So I just have a couple of opening remarks. Down goes forward, okay. Alright, so thank you for the opportunity to present the draft report and the proposed charter revisions from the Charter Revision Commission. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to my fellow commissioners, many of whom are here. Our Town Attorney Bob DiCrescento, Franklin Baruco, our staff liaison, and Amanda Blaze, our commission clerk, for their dedication and hard work over the past 16 months. Thank you also to Simsbury Community Media for taping the majority of our meetings. As you know, a town charter is a fundamental legal document that serves as a local constitution. It formally establishes a municipality and defines its governmental structure, powers, duties, and procedures. The charter outlines how officials are elected, how decisions are made, and how residents can engage in their local government. It ensures that municipal government operates within a clear and defined framework and provides a vital mechanism for accountability to the community it serves. The charter empowers our elected and appointed officials to act in the best interests of the town, providing clear guidance regarding their roles and responsibilities. It also establishes clear expectations and responsibilities for our town manager and town staff, helping to ensure effective and transparent government. So you all have a copy of the draft report, and you also have a copy of the proposed charter. I am going to attempt to use the clicker. I promise you I will not read the PowerPoint to you because I am not one of those people who does that. So I'm going to make the assumption that you've had some time to digest it, and we certainly want to leave time for us to answer your questions, address your concerns, and I do have fellow commissioners here that can also add some clarity around it. Okay, so I think I'm doing it right. So the beginning of the draft is really just an introduction regarding how this was formed, the timelines, the purpose of it, and how you guys constituted our commission. Here's a list of our commissioners, and we've included bios for all of us because we wanted the public to be aware of who we are and how we've served the town in various capacities over the years. So I'll get through all this. We received charges from the Board of Selectmen, which are summarized in this draft report. That these charges were approved by you back in January of 2025. We constantly revisited this list to make sure that we had addressed and discussed all of the items on your list, in addition to the things that came up during the past 16 months. So we established a procedure. We included public audience at the beginning of every meeting. The majority of our meetings were recorded by Simsbury Community Media. We had 25 meetings, 2 public hearings. We received 67 written comments, which are all on the website, the town's website. All the agendas, minutes, packets, research, everything that was done is all available to the public and has been throughout the whole process. One of the things that we did hear quite a bit about during public audience was the transparency in government. So we wanted to make sure we were emulating that during our process and really adhering to those as best we could. So this just goes on regarding the procedures and there is a packet that came to you in addition to the charter and the draft with copies of all the research materials that were pulled together for our discussions. Much of that research was done by Franklin, by Bob, at the request of the commission. And again, I want to commend Franklin on his hard work and support for our commission because we couldn't have done it without him.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. This is just a list of all of our dates of our meetings, so if anybody in the public needs to go back and reference anything, they can see that. These are the charters, these are the towns that we reviewed the charters of during the process. Not complete charters, but sections of in some cases. But these were the towns that we referenced when we needed to do some background research on this. We requested town planner comments from the following town planners. Obviously, George McGregor, our own town planner, but Avon, Weathersfield, Canton, and Cheshire, because we wanted to get input about planning and zoning. So we did ask some outside people to provide comments on how their towns work. So we had some context. We had public testimony from the following speakers. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but many of you testified in front of us, in addition to many of the board chairs and department heads. Any questions so far before I go through public audience summary? Okay, so again, many of the comments we received were around transparency, ensuring that language in the charter has checks and balances. We didn't want, we heard from the public that they didn't want additional powers given to the Board of Selectmen or the town manager. They didn't want things out of balance. They wanted to keep some balance on the Board of Finance and the relationship between the town manager and the Board of Selectmen as well. Consider having fewer non-elected boards and commissions. Some of that doesn't speak to the charter because we have a lot of boards and commissions that are done by ordinance. So that is in your purview, and we will go through some of our recommendations at the end of this. Public audience was a big thing. One of the recommendations that we have in the charter is that public audience be held at all board and committee meetings, because that's not the case. That we heard quite a bit from the public that should be a standard practice. We heard about the Board of Education, the size, how it's elected, and really wanted clarity on which boards have the authority to create subcommittees within their own boards and committees. Any questions? Okay. So major themes and highlights for the draft report, and we'll go through this and we have it summarized by chapter later in the draft report, but we kept the term length to 2 years for the Board of Selectmen and the first. We heard quite a bit from the public about maintaining accountability to the electors. We did do a vote on this. It was not unanimous among our commissioners on whether or not to keep this at 2 or to go to 4, but the vote carried and we kept it as is. We kept the first as separate election by residents, not the selectmen. So to clarify that for the public, other boards like the Board of Education, the Board of Finance, the board actually elects their chair. The people, the electors that spoke to us really wanted the ability to elect their first selectman versus having the Board of Selectmen choose who that chair is. Okay. We did not stagger terms because we kept the 2-year term. We formalized the selectmen's role in the review of the town manager's performance. We clarified the first role as the primary connection between the selectman and the town manager. And we reworded directing and ordering staff language because there was some ambiguity in that, in the existing charter. We kept planning and zoning commissions separate. We heard both sides of this in addition to us doing some outside research. Many people felt that Simsbury is a very special place to live, and it's that way because we have separate planning and zoning commissions, which in many cases requires different skill sets. And it's difficult to have people play both roles because the skill sets are very different in some cases. We defined the role of the town manager. We spent a lot of time on this, making sure that it was consistent with the metrics that you use when you hire someone and when you're reviewing that person, so there's not inconsistencies between what the expectations are in the charter versus what their expectations are in their day-to-day job performance. One of the things that we added was that we, when alternates are seated, that they should be of the same party of the absent member when possible. Just a good practice. So we've got the same balance of party affiliations. There's going to be, later we'll talk about a recommended open space committee ordinance change, and then conservation, inland wetlands, and water course agency as well. And then we recommend, just like you do with tri-boards for Board of Finance, Board of Education, and the Board of Selectmen, we are recommending, because of this whole conversation regarding planning and zoning, that there's an annual land use board and commission meeting. So those land use boards get together once a year and have the same type of conversation that you're all having, obviously different than budget conversations, but really goals and objectives so they can work together better. We thought that was a good practice. And then we clarified the roles and responsibilities between the Board of Selectmen and the town manager, and you'll see a lot of that when we get into those chapters. And that we clarified also that we want the town manager to confer with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance regarding employee union negotiations prior to going to the table. So there's conversations about the monetary piece of it prior to the town manager going to the negotiating table. And also adding that we would like the town manager to consult with the chairs of the boards to get some input on staff prior to doing staff reviews, not on their day-to-day stuff, but how they are interacting with the various boards and commissions. So that component is taken into consideration when they're doing staff reviews. Any questions so far before I go on?
No, do you,
Okay.
yeah, do you wanna go through it and then we can
Yeah,
maybe
that's fine. I just want, I'm talking a lot, so I wanna make sure I'm not ignoring something that you wanna ask, okay? Next thing was to require the town manager to promote collaboration between the government, residents, and taxpayers. And again, this goes back to transparency. All of these things in here are transparency and things that we continually heard again from public audience. Requiring public audience, establishing rules and procedures for each of the boards and commissions prior to them starting their new term. So it's understood how the meetings are going to be held, what the order of operations is going to be, are they taped, who's doing the minutes, when public audience is going to happen. And keep in mind, when I talk about public audience, this does not refer to our land use boards when there is a land use application in front of them, because there's legality around that. So there are some exceptions to the public audience recommendation, but that's because of legal reasons. Okay. Required that public hearing notices be posted on the town website, not just published in papers, which I think we're doing as a practice, but we just wanted to include that in the charter because things have changed and not everybody gets a newspaper anymore. Most people don't. And then when we were looking at the charter, we wanted to clarify the formatting of the charter so it made more sense in terms of the order. So a lot of if you ever want to look at the red line version, a lot of it's not really changes. It's just the reordering of information that's in there because it didn't make sense to define, for example, the role of first selectman at the end of that chapter. It should be defined first. Formatting issues that are legal standards in terms of how things are lettered and numbered and things like that. So there was a lot of formatting changes that were made as well. We also are recommending that there's a clearer policy on how political party unaffiliated voters can serve on boards and commissions. And one of our recommendations that you'll see later is that there's something developed so it's written so there's a clear path for people to understand how to participate, because in Simsbury, our largest party is unaffiliated, not really a party, but the largest number of voters are unaffiliated voters, and we want to make sure we get people involved where they want to get involved. But we want to be able to clarify how those people can do that, because it's not an easy path, as I'm sure you've all experienced. And we've made no changes regarding the referendums and how those are done and what the thresholds are that need to be met. Efficiency, that was really talked about a lot to keep the current form of government, allowing the selectmen to delegate grant applying authority to the town manager, so it doesn't have to come before you if there's a grant that, for example, that is timely and you're not having a board of selectmen meeting. We want to be able to authorize the town manager to apply for grants, like emergency grants, things like that. Instituting an attendance requirement for appointed boards and commission members. We heard that there's a lot of appointed boards and commission members who aren't regularly attending the meetings, and we wanted to include that as a requirement, so the electors are getting full participation from the people who are volunteering for these jobs. Because if they're not participating, they should be filled with somebody else.
Did you provide an avenue to remove or replace those?
It's up to you.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it comes back to you because you're appointing those
Right.
people. But yes, we did specify that in there, but it falls back on the people who have appointed them. But we heard from some people that there are people who are not showing up.
So I just wanna make sure that,
Yes.
and I know, but for the public, make sure there's an avenue.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just wanna, I know this is a small thing, but I know the charter says that, is the chair of that specific board or commission supposed to report that back to the Board of Selectmen if people are not attending? Okay.
The other thing regarding efficiency is what we I don't wanna say we learned during the process was because we've always talked about what belongs in the charter and what's in the code. There's a lot of ordinances that are on the books. There's some that are dated. There's some that go back to the 60s. And it's our recommendation that the Board of Selectmen every 4 years review the code of ordinances that are on the books to make sure that they're relevant and that they don't need to be changed, because only you have the power to change that. And there was things that came up during the charter revision that we couldn't address because they were code related. And then when we went to go look at the code, we understood what the frustration was because it was written in 1954. And it's no longer applicable, so we just wanna make sure that those are up to date. And we know it's a big ask, but that's why we put every 4 years instead of every 2 years, because it's a lot to do. And you probably need a subcommittee to do it, but it's something that should get looked at.
I just wanna add, that's something I've mentioned a few times on the dais, that this board potentially will take up a policy review, which would include these ordinances after we get through
Yeah.
all of this, right?
But if it's, once you do it, then every 4 years, it's just a
It's easier.
refresh.
It
It's the
should be
first
easier.
time, it's gonna be the hard one.
Yeah, the first time will be the hard time. We also recommend removing the requirement to post the entire budget in the newspaper because of the size and the cost. And have it be replaced with a summary. And it also makes it easier for the electors to read it and understand it. Okay, so right now the requirement is that the entire thing, which is I think a full page, it ends up being in the Hartford Current. And it becomes very small. And so it's very hard to read it and understand it because you can't really see it. So and that was the recommendation of Amy and Melissa, I believe. Okay, so that's the summary. So we thought it would make it easier for you to, how we organized this was by chapter. So we just wanted to outline what changes there were, if there were any changes, and what sections those changes were in, just to primarily because of the formatting piece of it, made the red line a little bit more confusing because it looked like we changed the entire thing when in fact we didn't. We just reordered something, so there wasn't word changes, there was location changes. So chapter 1 and chapter 2 had no changes recommended by the commission.
Does it make sense as we go through this section to see if people have questions or wanna
Well,
have
I
a
can, yes,
conversation on
absolutely.
each section? So
It's however you wanna run it, Wendy.
well,
It's your meeting.
thank you. I was hoping I could just sit back and relax tonight.
It's your meeting.
Nice try.
So I guess chapter 1, chapter 2, comments on this. Anything for anybody up here that they wanna ask any questions on? And if not, we can move on to chapter 3, which is a big chapter.
So chapter 3 pertains to elected boards and commissions. So we changed the name of the chapter 3 to elected boards and commissions because that we wanted to clarify what it was. It wasn't just boards and commissions because they are elected, appointed as a whole different section. So this is where we've added the recommendation that in section 301 that alternates are seated of the same party. We're recommending in section 301B to remove the Economic Development Commission from the list. And just to clarify this particular piece, because I know there's some controversy around it, there's an ordinance on the books regarding the Economic Development Commission, which the Board of Selectmen have passed and approved. The ordinance gives you the ability to tailor the Economic Development Commission the way you see fit that goes along with your policies and your vision for the town more readily than it being in the charter and having to be reviewed every 7 years. So this gives you the latitude to do what you need to do to go along with the policies of the town. It does not diminish in any way the need for economic development in Simsbury. In fact, we add later in the charter, economic development is added as one of the town manager's responsibilities as well. So it's in here. It's just I don't want anybody to think that we've diminished the need for economic development in town by suggesting that. Okay.
So my question is, and you're talking about 301B, right? And I'm only looking at the new version, so it's
Well, these references reference the old charter because I
Okay.
can't assume that
okay.
Right, we haven't
charter,
approved
you haven't approved a new charter.
Well,
The
we
town
don't
hasn't.
have the red line version of,
Yeah, we don't have that.
so what we have that we're looking at is the
Section 301A.
yeah, we're just looking at like the new
The new one.
proposed revised, which isn't helpful as we go through.
So in
I thought I had a red line version, but I do not.
Okay, so in 301 outlines elected boards and commissions and it lists Board of Selectmen. I don't have my reading glasses on, Board of Education, no, that, I'm in a different chapter.
That's
Right.
the
Hold on a second.
general elected boards and commissions that lists
I'm trying to look
those
at
on
the red line on
chapter
the,
3
Franklin, is it possible for us to get the red line version?
right now.
I'm just, in general.
Yeah,
He said he could,
absolutely. The formatting changes that were made to the charter made it formatted completely, it was a lot
Mhm.
of formatting changes initially in the first 2 pages which is the table of contents. And section 6 was completely reorganized and chapter 6 was completely reorganized and chapter 7 was completely recreated. So since it was, but yes, we can get you the
so if you look,
Red line
the red line, so 301B.
Yeah.
In the version that you have, which is our recommended version.
Yeah.
The only words that were removed was the word Connecticut in front of general statutes because we're in Connecticut, we didn't have to reference Connecticut. And the only word, in addition, after the Board of Finance, the words the Economic Development Commission were removed from that section. That was the only change in that paragraph.
I still have a question on 301A. I assume we should
301A.
go in order.
Yeah, that's what I was
instead of playing
Okay, go
thinking,
ahead.
but we don't know if it's the same order as the red light.
Right.
Can you give us some insight on why we need to acknowledge the absence of a regular member has to be the same political party and what the the idea is behind that, because it seems to not be broken, so I'm wondering what we're fixing.
Well, we received some comments that there are certain commissions, specifically zoning, where alternates, when an alternate needs to be seated, it was not being seated of the same party. And then they were voting on things. So we didn't wanna hold their hands tie their hands by saying that it must be the same party. We said it should be the same party when available. So if a D alternate is not present and a D is missing from the board, they can seat an R alternate because they still have to take a vote. We didn't want to preclude them from taking a vote. So we're encouraging them to seat an alternate of the same party because that was the intent of people when people elected people to those boards. We've got minority representation, majority representation. We wanted to keep it fair. But if that can't happen, they can still seat any alternate that they want because we want them to still be able to continue the meeting.
I somewhat beg to differ. We vote for people, not parties. So
Well, I might say though, if you're trying to replace a member who's an alternate elected in that role for that party to replace a person of that party on the dais. Like, that's not what I wanted to say, but that's how it came out. It seems like the balance, I can kind of see why you would do that, right? Like we had alternates on our
So
board
let's
and
say-
you were missing, right? We had two alternates.
Just wanted to offer something quickly, just for the efficiency on the meeting, and just a suggestion if you're amenable to it. If we ask during this presentation for points of clarity to understand the intent of what they did, and then we among us can discuss the merits and debate whether or not we are for or against as this process unfolds. It'll allow us to get through the full presentation, make sure we have clarity on what the intent is in the change, and then we can discuss
And so
and debate.
well, my problem is we don't have a lot of time to ask questions and get through this with everybody in the room. I do wanna point out that I did ask Chris and Paul to do a summary, to give us kind of cliff notes and references to pages and meetings to have, and if it's not in the packet, I didn't send it out because I wasn't sure if it was gonna be part of the packet, but I can forward that to everybody. Again, it's stuff we probably will want to talk out, publicly, but it was just, I just wanted to comment that was put together.
The intent behind that was just to try to keep the balance on the boards and commissions if possible.
it's just if you're an alternate for a party that has minimum representation, the odds of you being ever acknowledged, it diminishes the likelihood substantially. So if you have, let's just say there's 3 R's and 2 D's. Now let's say there's 3 D's and 2 R's. Regardless. Or let's say there's 5 D's and 3 R's. The likelihood of an R not being there, the alternate that's an R has less likelihood of ever being on the board, and as such, if you're following the logic.
No, I understand, but what we heard was
that
happening, and then we
person's-
looked at some things from minutes and stuff, that if an R was missing, a D was being seated and not the R. So we were just trying to keep the balance on it, but again, we didn't wanna tie their hands and left the language open-ended, so if that's not possible, if that R alternate is not present at the meeting, the D alternate gets seated because we wanna continue the meeting.
We wanted to keep the balance, and also this wording, I believe, was also in other charters that we looked at.
Okay.
So it
Yeah.
wasn't like we just pulled
We
it
didn't
out of
invent
thin
it.
air.
Okay, I'm fine.
And
That was the purpose of it, was the balance.
I actually kind of agree with Steve on this one, but I won't make a big deal out of it, but I think it's a unneeded phrasing in there. I think it's working fine currently. And there's no, to me, there's no reason to call it out, but I'm okay with leaving it in there if the majority likes it.
I also point to Kevin's point, this is just a general thing. Is someone tracking, the person doing the minutes tracking these kind of questions that we might want to revisit? So like this might be something we bring back to the dais for the 6 of us
Sure.
to talk through, to your point. Cause it's a small, it's more of an internal, you wanna hear the rationale, but It's somewhere where we would
Let's go to
wanna,
301B. I have another question.
301B, what? You're
Why
jumping
just-
ahead of all of us.
Because we're
That's
done
okay.
with that.
Okay. Alright, we're just,
Wasn't that
Well-
next? Why
Okay,
why just
Do you have a
EDC?
question?
can I-
Mike has a question.
Steve's going, aren't you?
what, can I just say something on the, wait, the EDC thing?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned that in 301B, but there's a whole new
there's a
section.
whole section about that.
And I would like to talk about that whole section, about what's included, what's not included.
So in 301B specifically calls out Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, Board of Library Trustees, okay, and Economic Development. Economic Development is not an elected board,
Right,
Right.
okay? It has no place being in this chapter because it's an appointed board.
great. But in 601 is the
It's
conversation.
a conversation
Yeah.
about EDC.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Right, we wanna talk about that.
now I get it.
Got it?
Okay, so 302A,
Did you have a question?
No, I'm fine.
oh, I'm sorry, Mike,
No, it's fine.
I apologize.
You're fine. Keep going.
Okay.
I think it comes.
So 302A, regarding the name, the words First Selectman and Board of Selectmen, where appropriate. And Bob can explain the use of this better than I can, because there's a legal, the rest of the charter will be referred to as First or Selectmen, so we're not constantly saying First Selectman or Board of Selectmen, except for specific instances when we're talking about the body, right? Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, there we go, I got it. So 302A regarding the length of term. You talked about this, you all testified in front of our commission. We heard testimony from public audience. We received written comments. We discussed this at several meetings. We ended up, because we couldn't come to a unanimous conclusion, we ended up taking a vote. And it was a 5-4 vote in favor of leaving the charter as written with 2-year terms of office.
So
And there was a lot of discussion that went around that, because people felt, public audience felt, and commissioners felt that the choice of the voters was the Board of Selectmen. They don't have a choice in who the town manager, and Mark, this is not against you, this is just the office. They don't have a choice about who the town manager is, but they wanted to have a voice every 2 years in who their elected officials were representing them.
So this is one of the gists of the asks that we gave to the Charter Revision Commission, right? To look at term, to look at staggered terms, 4-year terms, kind of form of government, how we define our form of government. You know, if we stay with the manager, the Board of Selectmen, First Selectman, Town Manager, you know, my biggest question is, we are really a manager council form of government. Regardless of what you call it, we're a manager council, right? We have a First Selectman who's a chief elected official. We have a town manager, if we keep it this way, I mean, we have a town manager who's the chief executive officer. And then we have the Board of Selectmen. In most, I saw Franklin's the chart, right? It did not include the title of the chief elected officials in those towns. But so experience-wise, there are many mayor, town manager councils out there. It's common terminology. I go to CCM, go to CROG. First Selectmen for the majority in the state are chief executive officers and the chief elected official, which I'm told many times people think I'm the chief executive of the town. So the question, and I understand it could be confusing to the public to switch first the terminology, but in reality, that's what we are. And with the charter being in place now for 7 years, almost 10 years, right?
7.
Well, it's 10. 2016 was approved, and then it was implemented in 2017, the first town manager. Is it time to move to what we truly are in the Connecticut space? That's a question I have. I don't know if others have that question. But just something that, and I know I've gotten answers, but I'd like to hear it for the board.
So one of the things I just wanna point out, we did not discount any of your public comments that you provided to us when we asked you to speak in front of us, okay? We had Franklin go back 30 years? I think it was 30 years. Because one of the concerns that we heard from you was not this past election, but the one before, when the board changed considerably. Was that there was a big learning curve and there's time to get up to speed and all of this. So we went back 30 years in time and looked at who ran, who won, who ran again on the next board, and that year, so I don't know what year it was,
23?
23 was in the last 30 years the only anomaly in not having the majority of the board return. So if they ran, they won, they were on it. That was the only year that that's ever happened. Okay, so it was unusual. Franklin did a great job on a giant piece of paper, figuring all this out for us, because it was one of the questions that we had was, how often has this happened? Because we wanted to be cognizant of the comments that you provided, because you're the ones sitting in those seats, but we also wanted to balance that with what we heard from the public about having a voice and choosing who is sitting up there every 2 years, and how often did that entire dais change. And it was very rare.
91%.
It was 91% of the time. There was consistency on if they ran, they won, they were, so there wasn't a lot of change typically. And Franklin can certainly provide, it's a very convoluted analysis that we did. So we all understood it, we went through it, we did discuss it. First, the words first selectman also have historical value, and that was we felt that there was too much, the public would have a hard time changing to a mayor, council, and understanding that the mayor was not the town manager, and if we were gonna keep the town manager form of government. We first started with, we didn't, based on the comments we heard, and any of you can speak, that we didn't wanna go back to just a first selectman form of government.
Right.
Okay, so we started there.
Well, I will point out though, and I appreciate the research, but in that 30 years, 2/3 of those years, 23 of them were our former form of government, where you had a first selectman, we did not have a town manager. So in the time that we've had a town manager, we've had considerable change.
Only once.
Right. But if you look at where we are now and where we're going forward, my concern is you may see that more often. And we don't know trends, but I would look at the trends and where we are in a town. And I just think it's something to consider, because it's hard to compare 2/3 of that 30 years being a first selectman form of government to then say, but that's comparable to the town manager and board form of government, and how often that's going to change, because we don't have that answer. And in that time period, that short time period we've had this form of government, we are on our second town manager and a change of board. So is that going to be a more likely trend? So it's just something to think about. Although the data does support it, it is not necessarily pure data, and it is not necessarily something that you can contribute apples to apples, because
No, and I'm not saying that but we needed some historical context behind it.
fair.
Well, so we're talking about the 2 to 4 year term, not the overall structure of the government, right? Okay, so
Both.
really, but the repeating board and commission is the 2 to 4 year, I think, is the logic there, is
Or
it?
staggered
one thing-
versus non-staggered.
Yeah. Go ahead, Curtis.
Just a quick thing to add to what Diana was saying. I think the Charter Commission said that majority of the voters are used. And so in this current political climate, to say that you wouldn't expect, the town of Simsbury's changed, right? So
Mhm.
you see a more Republican town, then changed a little more Democratic, and then now there's mostly undecided, unaffiliated. So to use historical data to say that it's gonna stay the same going forward, I think it's it puts us in a bad position as far as possibly having the whole board being removed in 1 year and then no one having any experience. And I think that's kind of the thing in which when we were asking you to look at this, is to prevent that from happening, to allow some continuity going forward. I think by having all those youth unaffiliated, it's really puts us at a risk.
That's why it was not a unanimous vote on the
Right, and one of the if I may, and just to add to that, one of the things that we looked at and listened to the public. And the only ones who were advocating for a 4-year term was this board. The public was asking for it to be 2 years.
Mhm.
And the reason we heard was accountability. As the legislative body, that's what you are, the legislative body, was accountability. So it came down, I know particularly for me, was stability, the 4-year, versus accountability. And listening to who was asking for what. And that's where we came down. I think the majority came down to accountability versus stability. And also, if you think about it, in the last election, you only had 1 seat change. This one before, I think you had what, 4 seats change, okay? And we also are in that period where we're only in the second go around for a change of government. In that we've gone from the first, who was the chief executive, to the chief elected officer of the legislative body and a chief executive officer, the chief administrative officer. Both titles are there for the town manager. So if you do have another change, you do have a professional town manager and a more professional staff to support him in that role. Now, with respect, Wendy, to the council mayor, again, that was another thing that was discussed somewhat, but there didn't seem to be an appetite for making that change in that, as you said, basically it's the same thing, okay, but you just don't have the title changes. And that might be something for the next charter revision group to look at, to say, okay, are we ready to make that next leap? But, structurally, this is we think a very good balance of what the legislative body does, what the role of the first is in working with the town manager, and how does that relate to a clarity of what the roles and responsibilities should be within the charter, which, as the last charter, which Jeff Tendall was on and I was on, the focus was on, do we change the form of government, which happened. And then I think a lot of other things fell by the wayside just because the focus was on making that change. So I hope that helps a little bit in the understanding of it. I know that there was the push to make that change, but it just wasn't, there didn't seem to be an appetite to make that change. And there was a considerable discussion around the 4 versus 2 years. But I'm speaking for myself. It came down to accountability versus stability, and that's where I landed.
Couple things. I appreciate that. I understand the 4-year to 2-year term. I did want to just ask this question: did you ever consider a 4-year term for the chief elected official and not the body?
We talked about it
Some
briefly.
towns do that.
We talked about it briefly, but it came back to exactly what Paul was talking about, is what we heard from public audience, from the public, from the electors, was that they wanted accountability and they didn't want to not have the ability to vote someone in or out every 2 years.
So
I think we had more, if I may, just add on that. I think we had more of a discussion around that the first was selected from among the Board of Selectmen, because that was also one of the things to look at.
Yep.
I think we had more discussion about that than we did about a 4-year term.
And when you say the public, like you had 2 public hearings, is that where these people spoke up or was it just a public audience? And I guess
I think it was more public
It was
audience.
more
yeah,
public
so
audience.
was it a
More
lot
public.
of people that came to speak? I guess I'm just trying to judge, we get 3 people here for public audience
A lot of
and
written input, a
Oh, go
lot of
ahead.
written input came
Okay.
through, 'cause they couldn't attend or they wanted to
about
get
the
it.
type of government and the titles and
Yes.
terms? Okay.
And it had a lot of discussion, like you said with the word mayor. Some people had a connotation, a mayor had a lot more authority and responsibilities in what we determined the first half. We had wording with council versus selectmen and with a lot of, we are historic and love our Yankee strongish, keep the history going. So there was a lot of discussion regarding that. Especially with the, how do we title your position first? Is it mayor, is it whatever? There was a lot of discussion over that.
And we had a lot of internal debate over this.
Oh, yeah.
Initially, we had initially recommended a 4-year staggered term.
Yep.
And then we had additional discussion after receiving additional input from the public. I had more discussion about this, did some more research, and then we took a vote, and that's how we landed.
Yeah, we had it drafted for 4-year staggered terms that we were ready to go with that. And then we heard, we got a lot more input than we thought we were going to get. And that's why we changed, we put it to vote, Madam Chair put it to vote. And just from my perspective, what I saw was that there was very little public appetite around the 4-year term. That the public wanted the 2 years because they really wanted the ability to change their government every 2 years. But we had actually drafted in the language for 4-year staggered terms.
And that's more common. I mean, most of the mayors and first selectmen I meet are 2 years. I know a couple that are 4 and it's just the first or whatever. So I'm just gonna go.
I have one quick.
Did you look at 2-year stagger terms? Just to prevent, again, a whole massive turnover. I don't know how it would work, but I was just.
Yeah, but that was the issue. We couldn't make it work with the way the cycle of elections come through and.
Because I know that's what the Board of Ed,
They're 4 years.
they're 4 years, but they're
Yeah, and the staggered, I do understand how confusing the staggered term was to even read and understand how that worked. But I wanna, you have a
But we
question.
understood it after, yeah.
I just, with the transparency and everything else that the public's asking for, is it stipulated anywhere in the charter, the term for the town manager, or is that something we set as a
That's,
board?
you said it's a contract that you,
Okay, so there's
Some charters do have that. They have a 3-year in their charter, but we didn't go that way.
Okay,
Oh, so you're saying it doesn't say the chief executive officer,
it only talks about us. Yeah.
right? And one, just along that lines, where does it say that the Board of Selectmen is the chief legislative body? Is it just implied or is it stated anywhere? Someone asked me that question and I don't remember.
it's in section 4.
4.
Not there yet.
I don't have
There
We
yet.
haven't gone there yet.
How many more pages do we
It's-
have?
Yeah.
So chapter
The
4,
towns.
section 401, the first sentence states that you're the legislative body.
Okay, I was looking for it to just say blank out that the Board of Selectmen is the chief legislative body of the town.
Yes.
That is the correct answer.
Who shall serve as the town's, okay.
So the only other change to chapter 3 was we removed the comments in section 304 regarding appointed boards and commissions because this chapter does not discuss appointed boards and commissions, it simply discusses elected officials. Okay, so that was the only other change.
Okay.
Am I good to go to chapter
We
4?
removed it, we didn't remove it,
We
we
removed
removed
it.
it.
Yeah.
We moved that whole section.
Yeah, the whole section's a different section.
Right.
It's
Kick
not,
it down.
kick it down.
Okay,
Any other questions about chapter 3?
no, not now.
Okay, chapter 4. Again, change the title to Board of Selectmen in the first. The title of the chapter. Okay. Reorder, so in this section, we reordered the sections within this chapter. So it now starts out talking about the presiding officer and the organization and the procedures. In 401, it's stated that you're the town's legislative body. 402A, we removed the welfare subcommittee, which has not met since 2009.
Is there a reason you left in the finance subcommittee? Cause there's not much use for the finance subcommittee, I know in Coventry, they have a finance subcommittee of the Board of Selectmen, but that's because they do not have a Board of Finance. So the finance subcommittee acts as a Board of Finance. I don't even know from the past what that board did. We use it as an ad hoc finance board right now. But I was just curious because it forces you to have it. And I guess that's something we can discuss on our own. I don't know if we need the input. I just was asking if anybody ever suggested taking it out.
No, but
Okay.
the only suggestion to take out was the one that we knew has not met for quite some time.
Okay, well this
And no one could define what they even do.
Okay, so that'll be on our docket if we wanna talk about that. One other thing, can I just, since we're here, and this came up when we did our rules of procedure, the electors of the town conversation. All meetings shall be open to the electors of the town. Remember when we talked?
Rules and procedure.
Yeah, we did electors and taxpayers or
Yeah.
so I just wanted, that would be something maybe we just revisit because it's really kind of internal
Sure.
to talk about that. So just if whoever's taking these notes on what we
So I think clarity is important. So from my perspective, the reason why that's in there is that we're required to open it to electors in the town. But through our rules and procedure or a vote from this group, we could allow others who have business before the board to speak, but we're required to have electors be participating.
So you're
That's
saying
why
it-
it's
you can go
important.
beyond that?
Yes, we can
Yes.
go above
Okay.
and beyond
Okay.
our minimum requirement.
This is the minimum
Okay.
requirement, we can,
Got it, thank you.
If you put it in the charter, it would be required all the time.
correct, we can broaden,
That's how I
Okay,
read it, yeah.
perfect.
as Mike said, we can broaden, not restrict.
Okay, broad and not restrict, I like that. Okay.
So we've talked about a lot of this when I did my summary. So, you know, in interest of time, I don't know if you wanna ask me specific questions about.
Quick question for you on 404.
It scares me every time.
I know, like, the voice in the room.
The voice from beyond, Curtis.
404F. Is that a new power for the first selectman to be able to declare a public emergency?
What page is,
What are you
Not
on?
there yet,
There's
are
no
we?
pages.
404F.
Oh, I have that on 404 too.
So this conversation, and Bob, you can.
I still had a question on 403,
Okay.
if
Oh,
that's,
I thought we were, okay.
I had a question on 403C about the grant authority. I'm trying to find it in here now, it's so small,
403C.
right? The selectmen are authorized to apply for and accept on behalf of the town. And delegate the authority to apply for grants to the town manager.
Just apply only, not receive.
Not receive and not authorize. You still have to authorize as the Board of Selectmen the acceptance of the grant.
Okay.
Oh, once authorized, he can prefer.
No, you're authorizing him to apply, but once it's applied for, he has to bring it back to you to vote to accept it
Same as it.
And appropriate.
and
Right,
appropriate.
it's apply only,
It's
we had
apply
a
only.
discussion around that.
Yeah, I thought there was a change.
Makes sense.
403, okay, somewhere I thought I read it delegates it
There you go.
fully, but I guess.
So it was added that the delegation of the authority to apply for the grants to the town manager according to the criteria that
Okay.
you, as the Board of Selectmen, may establish. So if there are particular grant, like if.
Yep. Yep.
I don't wanna, I
Yeah, I
don't
got
even
it.
know what to use, like,
That's.
Yeah, we talked about.
I mean, if there's a grant that is to paint the town pink and you don't want him to go after, and I'm not calling you out,
It's
I'm
fine.
talking
Be that way.
Denied.
You know,
You called me out, like dream.
and you don't want him to apply for that, you're not authorizing him to apply for that, right? Or if we don't want, you know, all the sycamore trees cut down, or I don't know, you know.
Oh, so I do wanna talk about 403E because that is where it was the old directing staff staff that you guys
Yes.
have modified, and I believe it's a little bit clearer here than it has in the past, but I just wanted to clarify, notwithstanding the foregoing, this section does not prohibit the first or the chairs of any elected or appointed boards from requesting, obtaining in a timely fashion data. So basically what it's saying that all report requests go through the chairs to the town manager or their boards, not
Yes.
directly.
To the town manager.
Yeah, okay. It just
And the discussion around that is boards and commission chairs can't
know what-
assume to know what the town manager, when he or she is managing the staff, about everything else that's going on and other priorities that they may have. So instead of going directly to a department head, it should all get funneled through the person who's managing the town staff.
Well, and you're saying it goes through the chairs, which is good, so that the chairs of every board and commission, which, you know, historically, they know what's going on and what people are asking of the town
Right.
manager, so I appreciate that being in here.
We just wanted some clarity about
Yeah, no, I
that.
appreciate
Not any
that.
commissioner
I think
can
that's a
call
good
and
clarification.
somebody to count how many orange cones we have in town, or you know.
Chris, can I just, but I just wanna clarify too, though, even though it goes through the funnels through the chair, it really funnels through you guys. In other words, me as a chair, I can't sit and ask for 10 reports by Monday, right? It still has to funnel through you guys. In other words, the chair or a member of the, I guess, the town employee or the commissioner can't, you know, weigh down a staff person. Because as Chris said, they don't know,
Yeah.
you don't know, they don't know what they're is on.
We don't know what else is going on.
Stop there.
So Curtis has had the
Curtis, you have a
Section
question in
404.
404F. Curtis, you had that question?
I have that question too.
Yeah, 404 has the emergency powers to declare a state of emergency. Is that a new declaration? 'Cause I think
No,
we had that microburst. I don't think that's the way we handled it.
Well, and I think that was the problem, was
It's vague.
nobody knew whose power that like whose feet that was lying at and who had the authority to declare the public emergency, and it wasn't done, and therefore we missed out on some actually funding that we could have gotten from the state.
Yeah, I wasn't looped in, and I wanted this clarified because I don't want it to be, it says shall, I think, is it may or shall? Just trying to, right?
it shall.
It's be able to declare a state of emergency. So it insinuates the first selectman, chief elected official, is part of, whether it's an EOC or the emergency management team, to be at the table
Yes.
for any sort of disaster emergency, which doesn't really happen now. It doesn't happen now. And has an override capability or may weigh in on if they feel that a disaster should be declared or an EOC should be called, like, and go through the FEMA emergency management system. That's what this is saying now, correct?
Saying that you shall, it means that you must be at the table and you must declare.
So you're saying the total calling of the instigating an emergency management chain of command for an emergency operations center is on the chief elected official solely, not on I'm looking at you, so
That's actually the way the statute reads. We had this issue come up during the pandemic. Where, if you remember, it was, believe it or not, it was 6 years ago. And things were happening so fast. And the way we did it, because it was unclear, the statute says chief elected official.
is it me then?
We drafted a resolution, actually more than one resolution, where both the town manager and the first selectman were the sponsors of the resolution. This, I think, clarifies it to match it up with the statute.
So
Chief elected official is in charge of declaring an emergency.
right, which is different than in the middle of an emergency, having the emergency management director and the emergency management team gather and start preparing. I think it's more in that declaration of a state of emergency, which for the state purposes and FEMA it doesn't necessarily preclude like when we just even had our last snow event and, you know, you had Mike Berry, you know, and Eversource and police and Tom Roy and, you know, everybody giving input. I don't think they're waiting for, this does not mean that they
No.
wait on the chief elected to, okay, you guys all need to get together now. Like in the emergency, the powers still happen that the emergency management
But there's
team.
a difference between an emergency and a state of emergency.
Right.
Correct, and I think that's what we are clarifying.
Well, an EOC is a when you call that operations center.
The operations center may be put in place without declaration of a state of
Okay.
emergency.
Okay, that's what,
Two different
that's what we're
issues.
trying to get,
Because,
make sure,
you
to
know,
clarify,
a snowstorm may require the emergency
Right.
operations
but not a
center,
state of
but
emergency.
not necessarily a state of emergency. Pandemic requires
The
a state of
microburst
emergency.
needed a state of
Microburst,
emergency in that, in those
Because
areas.
there's so many trees down, the power was out, so it's a difference in magnitude.
Hey, Bob, question for you. So if there's an emergency, you know, the first elected is not in town because it's not a full-time job. Should we have some wording in there that says that the town manager can also, because you would assume if it's
For the
during
acting,
the work week, the town manager would be
Well,
in town or.
if the first selectman's not in town, there's language in the charter that says the deputy first.
Yeah, the
selectman.
deputy is on
H.
tap.
The deputy's
Yeah,
on
H, that's-
God help us. I'm just kidding.
So
We just have to
Steventown.
joke, we have to
the
joke a little.
reality is
Yeah.
the first selectman could declare a state of emergency, but is not the EOC responding to the
Correct.
emergency.
Correct. It's really, as you know, a lot of the FEMA grants require a declaration.
I know.
of state of emergency, and they're gonna examine how you did it.
right?
If you didn't do it right, they're not gonna give you the grant. So,
So this now protects us so that
yeah.
the state of emergency lies within the power of the first,
declaration.
so that the declaration can be made and FEMA funds can
Yeah.
then be
Yeah,
authorized,
just-
basically what, okay,
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
It was intended to clarify that whole.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
Because last time it was like, I thought it was you, I thought it was you, I thought it was you.
okay.
That's why we did it.
Anything?
Anything
Did that
else?
answer, Curtis? I'm talking at the ceiling now. Curtis, Curtis.
Yeah, no, I wanted to just be sure that we got some clarification. So yeah, thank you.
In section 410 A.
Can I ask a
Yep.
question on H, 404H? I just was curious, I read this, the deputy first. Just a quick question, are we still the first selectman and the deputy first selectman, or do we just say, or, I mean, if you run for office again, are you just running as the first?
No, you're the first selectman. It's just, it's
Just for the charter
It's
purposes.
just for the charter.
Okay, it's an inside joke. The deputy first shall serve as acting first in the event of the temporary absence or inability of the first. Is there a provision, or we can talk about it as where is that, sorry, it's too many back and forth. Or is designated by the first as needed, is that something we could talk about, like, I don't know, what if you're incapacitated? It just says temporary absence or inability.
Right.
But what if there's a reason
Exactly.
the first selectman wants to have the deputy take over? Anybody understanding that? I'm just
Like
trying
when
to,
you're out of town, that was money, when you go out of town,
Well,
or out of
what-
the country, Steve takes over.
yeah, no, I know, I in the event of an absence or inability of the first, but it doesn't say, trying to,
well, if
I'm just trying, expanding it like as designated by the first as needed, I'm just saying. Does
It seems to
anybody-
me that you have the so if you are absent for a meeting, that's not conveying the powers of the office, it's just chairing the meeting.
Right.
So that's a whole other thing, but if you were gonna convey the powers of the office due to an absence or something that you decide,
Inability.
you do that in a formal way and you appoint him as the acting first selectman in your absence.
Right.
That's it,
Right.
that's all it is.
I get it, but I'm just saying, it says inability of the first, but I guess I'm saying, is there a choice allowed by the first that may want to have that deputy take over? Like, not because of an inability or not because of an absence. It's kind of like, forget it. I mean.
you're the elected official of the town, why would you?
No, I'm just trying to make that a little bit more expansive, is what I was trying to say. No.
No.
Okay.
It's like if you have to go in for
I
some
understand.
surgery and you're going to be incapacitated and under anesthesia, we would want the deputy,
you're gonna be out of town at a wedding.
It's no different than the President of the United States
Right.
can't just decide that the Vice President's gonna be president for the day.
Why can't?
Well, I mean, it depends, but you know.
Right, I could, okay, I was just trying to.
You can always resign.
Is there,
Yeah.
right, is there a provision, and because I think this may happen, but like what if the first and the deputy are both either out of town or
Then we would have to take some sort of,
You would have to take an action
extraneous
as a board of
action, yeah.
selectmen?
It would be
Yeah.
extraordinary circumstance.
They're elect.
Because the charter can't
I was just
provide
looking
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
every worst case scenario.
Make it
I think it's the
Otherwise it would
Speaker of
tie
the
your
House,
hands
that's who
quite a
gets
bit.
it, it's the Speaker of
Yeah, I
the
think
House.
it's
I'm
good.
telling you.
Okay, it's fine,
Town
fine.
meeting.
You call
It's
them.
just, I had in my notes, brought it up. Alright. Okay.
Section 5.
Can I move on?
She was going to 407. 410.
I was gonna go to 410.
410, I've already asked about 410 a few times. I asked Bob and I asked,
So we expanded it to include the lease, license, and development of town-owned property.
okay. Which,
Yeah, but only if it's over 1% of the gross budget, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's $1,120,000 in today's day and age. Which,
Yeah, and then there's more language about that particular stuff later in the charter.
It was really intended to not allow a future Board of Selectmen to subvert the intent of the conveyance by adding lease or license, because to avoid the 1% threshold, a future Board of Selectmen could say, well, we'll do it as a lease, and then we won't have to meet the 1%.
I see where we're going.
okay.
Good point.
I'm switching slides. Ooh, something happened.
It's down this forward.
Time up.
Curtis, are you still there?
The computer died.
Something.
Yeah, I'm here.
You lost the screen.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Okay, so chapter 5, town manager and administration of the town. It might just be easier instead of me going through each to ask you if you have any questions.
So my only question was, did you use the collaboration language from examples from other charters? I'm just unfamiliar with it and was interested in that part. I support the concept, I just wondered about how you drew that.
Well, some of it was based on your testimony,
Mhm.
town manager testimony, public audience, and reading of some other charters, so it's kind of like a,
That's fine. I didn't know if it was novel to ours or if there were examples
Oh, the
of
word
other-
collaboration, you mean?
Yeah,
oh, I don't, I'm not sure.
okay, that's fine.
If that is a novel word to us. I don't wanna profess to
And
be
we also
smarter
added
than,
residents and taxpayers in there instead of citizens.
Okay.
Clarified that a little bit.
Are we, I had a question on 502A15. So the union negotiation, I believe it's adding the BOF in there as part of the union negotiations. And I raised the question, I think you guys answered it, or someone answered it, is
She just said that was in there.
does the Board of Ed they have that per
Same,
state
yeah.
statute?
they have that in their section as well, that they, and it's not to be at the table, it's to have a conversation prior to the town manager
And set
going to the
priorities,
table.
right and left limits.
Yeah, we
Like
have to
for
notify
financial
them.
reasons?
We have to notify them that the negotiations are happening.
Okay. Okay, yeah, 16 also. Oh, so let me read this, sorry, I didn't go back there. The charter requires administration official as defined, outlined to provide staff support to a town board or commission. The town manager shall consult with the chair of the appropriate board and commission for the annual performance review process of that respective board or commissions. Was that a new ad? Like, yeah,
Yeah, so if
the peer colleague review.
for example, Board of Finance.
Yeah.
Can provide input to the town manager about Amy and Melissa.
Yeah.
Not specifically about their day-to-day tasks, but about their relationship with the board and
Yeah.
the support of the
Yeah.
board.
Yep.
They don't sit in the, no one, we're not saying that you're sitting in on the performance reviews, that you're writing the performance reviews. That's the town manager's responsibility, but we felt that the board should have input so he or she knows if they're being collaborative with the boards and commissions.
Yeah, okay, but the peer review is just kind of a
Yeah.
new.
but not input on their compensation.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Any other questions on 5?
I have notes here, but I can't figure it out.
We'll move to 6 and we can come back.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah, keep
Okay.
moving.
Okay, chapter 6, this is regarding appointed boards and commissions.
So I'm gonna just put it out there.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Can I put it out there? You wanna put it out there?
No, same thing.
I have the question of, you know, I understand the specifics that we've heard about EDC and the ordinance, but all of these boards and commissions, other than the state required boards and commissions, don't need to be in here. And my question was, why are they, I went through and, you know, you can see which ones have state statutes and which ones don't. Why aren't just the state required ones in here and leave the other boards and commissions to ordinances like is being done with EDC? I just feel that you talk about the flexibility on EDC as a sole thing, but there could be flexibility needs for open space. And I'm sure the public will not like me saying some of these things, but there's other ones in here that are not required by aging and disability is not required by the state statute. Culture, Parks and Rec Commission is not required. Open space is not required. My question is, Design Review Board is not required. Why do we go to the trouble of including them in the charter when we can have the ordinance like we would for EDC? I'm just curious.
well, with reference to culture, parks and rec, because they are a very large line item in our budget,
Okay.
that was one of the considerations of keeping them in here because they have a considerable budget.
Okay.
With reference to those that are not required by law, the reason why we kept them there is to provide the citizen with, you know, the residents with guidelines as to what is out there and what is not. So if they were to look at the charter, they would see what commissions were there. It's all in one place.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's also confusing because they're not all here. Like there's other, there's the temporary boards and commissions that are not in here. So if you go to the boards and commissions page on the new or old website, they're all there.
Well, temporary boards and commissions by definition are 2-year terms.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're
So the
coterminous with you.
And these, and with the view, I think the view was these are not temporary boards and commissions. Unlike sustainability or technology, which you appoint for 2-year terms, these are more ones that historically have been permanent boards and therefore should be left in the charter.
We also heard from the boards as to what they did and then
We're not saying
because they've been
remove the boards, we're saying remove the mandate so that we can populate additional boards as technology and society changes. If we are encumbered with a board that needs to sort of morph, doesn't have to be disbanded, but morph into the future, this is tying our hands, and that's the case to be said for less is more. It's not that we would disband the boards, it's that we are able to bob and weave's probably not
It
the
is a good,
professional
it is a
term,
good term.
but we are able to bob and weave with the boards. How about just, you know, culture, parks and recreation? What if we split off the arts or something?
Right.
You know, that's something that's actually been discussed. If you've got it listed as culture, parks and recreation, we cannot take that board and split it. because it is stipulated.
So in defense of our commission,
Yeah.
that
I wouldn't
was,
call it defense, Chris,
It
I don't
was a
mean
little
to be antagonistic.
it was brought to us from the town manager to
Okay, yeah, we know.
a letter, okay? We put it back in your court as the Board of Selectmen of whether or not culture, parks and rec should be parks and rec and culture. And we never heard anything after that, so we left it as is. It doesn't preclude you from using an ordinance to carve out culture or arts in an ordinance from that commission. But what we heard from the commissioners was, you can take culture out of my name, but don't touch my budget.
Yeah.
No, and I think that was, can I just say, that's a different example.
But their budget isn't doing any of the culture and arts anyway, so it wouldn't really be such, but I understand your point is then would that create a different budget? But
Yeah, it doesn't
Because it
preclude
had potential budget implications, we did not feel it was our place to make a policy decision about, and full disclosure, I'm on the Performing Arts Board. I'm a supporter of the arts in our community. It wasn't, because it had potential budget implications to have a culture board that had to be potentially funded, it was a policy decision. That's not our job.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I think that's a bad example because I really do, because that was a whole thing. I'm gonna just point to, the point was the flexibility in boards and commissions, right? And if, like, let's say I look at open space, and this is something we'll have to talk about ourselves, but open space. This tells me, this is specifically says who is on that board and commission, these are the people. Well, what if we decide we need somebody on open space from economic development, right? This tells me who I have to have on here. I can't add that person if I follow the charter. If it was by ordinance, it could bob and weave to whatever the need was at the time of the current board and legislative body. So I think that's something, I think that's something we should bring back to the table and discuss. I don't know, if we have consensus,
we
but
should discuss it.
Well, the other thing I wanna mention when
Yeah.
we were looking at this is we looked at the Plan of Conservation of Development, which is a new document, okay? And we used, because that had a lot of stakeholder input into the creation of that document, and things like an aging population, accessibility, open space were all very important themes throughout that document. We thought it was really important to continue to have those represented in the charter, to be consistent with what the people who spoke and participated in that very comprehensive study with a lot of stakeholders clearly identified in the POCD.
do they mention economic development in the POCD? I guess that's
Yeah, I
another
agree with
question.
that.
I just, But what we-
Yeah,
I think that's,
I'm not gonna debate the
Yeah.
economic development
But okay,
conversation
so
that we spent
but did the
3 days
POC
I think
meetings
that's for
on.
us to
was the
debate.
POCD as prescriptive, to Wendy's point, just gonna pick on open space again. So, cause open space is very prescriptive in who shall serve on that committee. Was the POCD supporting those particular committee members to be that prescriptive, or to Wendy's point, what if there there should be others on that committee that this does not allow for that ability
The
to happen?
POCD does not go into any of the detail of the charter, it just
Right.
simply states the importance that the stakeholders who participate in the town have of open space.
Right.
One of our recommendations is Bob, you provided it, right? The Yukon study in our research. One of the recommendations when we get later in this draft of things that we want you to consider outside of this charter conversation that we heard was defining open space. There's different.
Right.
So Yukon has a very comprehensive study of the definition of different versions of open space, public open space, protected open space, like there's just a lot of different. And based on public comment that we received, based on the research that Bob provided us regarding open space, because when we get into the open space conversation, we feel that one of the recommendations we're giving you is that you look at that very strongly and adapt some definitions in an ordinance of what the town of Simsbury views as open space. So there's more clarity when you're having conversations about sales, acquisitions, leases, uses, all of that.
So, but I guess my question is there a reason why the open space committee is as prescriptive in who the committee makeup is, rather than having some flexibility and the ability to?
We did not change what was in the existing charter.
We can't either if it stays in.
I think the original
Right.
reason that it was put in there and who was there was as the town was going through major acquisitions of open space, whether it be Ethel Walker, or the Bob, you mentioned that you were there. Some of those things, it was like, okay, we have to make sure that the stakeholders who are members of the various boards and commissions have a say on that.
Have a seat at the table.
And also to have representation on there from 3 people who were not on a existing board. So that's why I believe it was there and why it was originally created and in the charter. And also, as we know moving forward, that's a very topic where a lot of the people, as she mentioned in the POCD, are very concerned, not concerned, but value open space. Now, if you, to Wendy's point, if you say, look, I wanna be able to bring in somebody from another, like EDC,
Right.
okay? I mean, you could add language to this that says that additional members as required or
As needed.
needed
Right.
by, the Board of Selectmen or the first.
Determined under the goals of the Board of
something
Selectmen,
like
whatever,
that.
yeah.
Regarding design review was put back into zoning. Originally, it used to be on its own. And the historic district that is there because of the value that people had on some of the historical buildings in town back in the
Right.
1670s, right?
State statute on that one.
So
Yeah.
And if you came and said, look, make a recommendation, you want a recommendation to get rid of culture in the Parks and Rec, that would probably be something where the last charter, I think, actually recommended that the board do that. And it just never happened.
Well, they did it on social media. It looks great, Tom, the new logos. I just wanna call that out. I love it.
Doesn't say culture.
So, yeah. Well,
But yeah, I guess allowing a language, I'm not looking to get rid of the open space, I was just allowing for some flexibility as needed,
And we didn't change anything.
so let me ask a question related to the whole thing, because the only board and commission that was taken out was EDC. I'm sensitive to that too. We've heard from EDC. I justify any of these committees, you would have to justify all these committees. But what you're saying is there allowance in the charter to say that any of these boards and commissions can be removed or changed by ordinance? You can't do that, Bob?
No, you can't change the charter.
That language
But you
is-
can't include that language in the charter, is what I'm saying.
I mean, you could put language in the charter to the effect that it shall remain in the charter until such time as an ordinance
Yeah, that's
is
what I was,
passed to
get rid of, to not,
supersede it. In fact, that's essentially what the EDC section of the charter says today. It says Board of Selectmen shall pass an ordinance creating the Economic Development Commission. That was done, which sort of makes the current section of the charter out of date. Because it says
Create by
Create
an
an
ordinance,
by ordinance.
which you've done.
It directed the Board of Selectmen to create an ordinance creating an Economic Development Commission. Once that was done, that section of the charter became obsolete essentially. And you could do the same, you could tell the commission, recommend to the commission, you can't tell the commission to do anything, but you could recommend that the similar type language be put in for the those boards and commissions that you feel would be better served through ordinance because it gives you flexibility or membership, however you wanna say it. And then commission would consider it, and when it comes back to you, it would either be in there or not.
But don't some of these boards have ordinances anyway? Am I making that up?
I don't think you're making it up.
Just EDC, but I thought, see, this is where my confusion is, it's hard to, there's not one place to look for boards and commissions. If they were all in ordinances, if all of these boards and commissions were in an ordinance, then we would look in the ordinances. But there's like this crossover between the charter, the ordinance and else. And we don't have to, this is something we could debate on the dais, but I think it's something that we will discuss, just and
some have to remain in the charter because it's state statute.
yeah, those are the ones I agree.
You have to have a historic district commission because you have an historic district.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, I know, I have, and they're all marked as state or not state, so that was
So
good. Okay.
just from my seat, and I won't take long, I do think that the charter is the people's input and what their priorities are for us.
Okay.
And especially for these appointments, how we're going to get input in each one of these relevant areas. So things that are important to the town are maintaining our parks.
Yeah.
Maintaining and protecting open space. The design review commission and that appointment by zoning, I think is a value because of how buildings come to town and how it will fit in the community. So I think it informs the advice that you're gonna get when we have to set policy and set an ordinance, and putting it in a permanent place like this. How we use that advice, the power is still vested in this board, that is changed by the people every 2 years on how we're gonna take that advice and use it.
The one thing I would just add, just to get on the record too, is I don't think you should base it upon who has the biggest budget, or budget should be any part of this decision really, because the budget is done annually, it can change from year to year. So I don't think that you should base whether you keep a board or commission in the charter based upon the current budget, that's all.
Good point, thank you.
Most of them don't have any budgets.
Right, they don't.
Parks and
Okay.
Rec, you know.
Parks and Rec have a big one.
Speaking of
Love you,
budget,
Tom.
which page are we on?
Yeah, I know, do we need to set like some sort of time?
We should have somebody chair it.
That what?
Move on to 7.
Okay, any other questions in chapter 6?
Just the police commission, I hate to hamper it. Just why it's broken out so separately? 14.
Probably a lot of history there, Steve.
There was a lot of history there. We did meet with the Chief Bolter. We met with the police officer's attorney, the police commission chair, and this is what was agreed to. They want it really isn't substantial changes, but it's just some wording changes. There was some debate on the whole citizen complaints, if the police commission was actually doing the investigating of citizens' complaints and knocking on people's doors and asking, hey, did this really happen? That's not their job.
Right.
So we wanted to clarify that because
It was.
it was
And
worded
people
in a
got
way
sued.
that they were supposed to be knocking on people's doors and and doing the actual investigating, and that's not what happens. So they wanted clarity in that. They also wanted clarity regarding
So
entering
Chris,
into collective
I'm
bargaining
actually on the last bullet point.
What
The
budget?
police commission submitting a budget. Which
Oh, yeah.
maybe I'm in left field,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that's actually where I was going with this, not the actual existence of the police commission.
It's item E.
Item
Yeah,
E.
why does the police commission submit a budget instead of the police?
because the police commission, the police department, maybe you can explain this better than I. The police commission submits a budget to the town manager, who submits the budget to the Board of Selectmen. So before, the police commission used to do a presentation to the Board of
They
Selectmen.
just
They
did.
did, yeah,
Okay.
last meeting.
They were still requesting that they get an audience if you allow it, but it's not required. They could simply just present their budget to the town manager, who then presents it to you, but their concern was they wanna make sure that there's an understanding from the Board of Selectmen when you're reviewing the budget about the things that they have put into the budget regarding safety concerns and training and things like that, to make sure that that you knew what was in the budget. So if you have to make cuts, you understood what those implications were. Does that make sense?
Well, I see Steve.
So if we're looking at this year's,
Thanks, Jenna. Hi, Jenna.
let's start with the police commission.
Yeah.
I'll use this year's budget as an example. The police commission budget has a position for a dispatcher. We're asking the Board of Selectmen to fund another dispatcher position.
Mhm.
I do believe, if I'm not correct, the town manager's budget does not have that in his budget. So this provision allows us to continue to articulate what our commission deems the necessities of the department, which the town manager is looking through a different lens. So that's why that provision is there. Historically, the police commission has always been able to articulate what it has viewed through our monthly meetings and discussions with the police department and discussions with officers and the community.
So you kind of lobby for the
Yeah, it's
needs.
just a different lens.
in a
We
different-
are
yeah.
approaching this from a different view than the town manager.
It's just, I mean, culture, parks and rec doesn't get a different, they can't usurp the town manager and propose stuff, if I'm not mistaken. And that's actually where my question is.
It's actually, the police commission was created by the Board of Selectmen to handle the administrations of the police department. Because frankly, the Board of Selectmen did not want to get involved in it. So and this happened years and years ago.
Yeah, that was way before
Well,
my
before a
time.
town manager form of government.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
I
decades
agree
ago.
with that, it's just, are all the boards and commissions allowed this same
No.
opportunity?
No.
They're
And that's
different.
Yeah, the police
I think it's
commission is
just because
different.
of safety, Steve.
Because it pertains to safety.
And public
Right.
Okay.
And their function is unique among, all the
Correct.
services employees and
It's like
it's a
Commissioner
citizen,
Gordon.
it's a citizen oversight board, right?
It is.
So
Right.
that's
Some
an
of them
important
remember
function.
that.
and-
But I
I
do
let's
when-
move
right.
on.
I appreciate the language that
Steve, you better drive careful on the way home.
I do appreciate the language you have put in here
What are we on?
regarding the citizens matters and other things that protect the commissioners, honestly, where previously we know that they have been sued and
Yes.
so I can appreciate and thank you for the careful language that you've put in here. Making sure that people can serve on this commission and feel supported and protected in this language in the charter.
And not being charged with investigating it.
Correct.
Yes.
Just point of clarification for the board and for the
Yes.
public, just Madam Chair Barnett mentioned the police officer's attorney. She meant to just say the leadership of the Charter Revision Commission spoke with the police chief and the labor attorney
I'm
for
sorry.
the town. No problem. If anybody
There's a lot of people like that.
labor attorney for the town, not like a separate lawyer for the
That's
No, not a
one
separate-
gotcha from Franklin.
He corrects me all the time.
We did take a lot of wording out, so it's not so restrictive with the police commission. It was so limited that it bound them to investigate, so we took a lot of wording out to give them more flexibility.
So Steve, we can say Franklin, our
Let's say
commission liaison.
chapter 7, keep moving.
Okay, chapter
not
7.
Oh,
7. Anybody? I have
I think
a
the clicker's
comment.
down.
I got a couple little things in 7.
Okay, so 7 is the title has been changed to administrative officials and departments. The administrative officials are listed in accordance with the town's organizational chart, so it's consistent. And it's consistent with there were people listed. It was very jumbled the way it was listed. It's probably the best way to put it. And people who were directors you didn't know who was reporting to whom, so we had the organizational chart and that's how it was organized. And the welfare officer language was removed because it's not a term that's used in state statute anymore, and not one person could tell me who the welfare officer was in town because we don't have it.
Jeff Tyndall. Look what time it is, Jeff.
The welfare officer is listed as the town manager.
Right.
Or this.
And we
Your
removed,
title.
the commission removed that section
We
as
removed
well,
that section,
on the
but
council of the town attorney.
so you had a question?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So in 701, and I'm not trying to take away responsibility, but it says the town manager, rightfully so, may adjust the reporting structure as from time to time may deem appropriate and necessary for the best interests of the town, and I assume that's of the administrative officials.
Mhm.
But I guess the question is, and you would assume this would happen, but should it say inform the selectmen of the new structure? Because it impacts us knowing what the town looks like. And I don't know if that's being over prescriptive, or is it just making sure that if there's a change in movement of structure, that we as a legislative body know what that looks like. And that's for us to discuss, I guess.
That feels to me like it's covered in chapter 5 because
Okay.
that's his duties.
That's
is
his
to work,
responsibility.
and your
Okay.
supervisory role
Okay, that's a good answer.
on our behalf.
Okay. So I'll take that.
Cause if he's doing stuff we don't want him to do, he's not telling us, then that might be actionable, Mark.
It certainly wouldn't be collaborative.
It certainly would not.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll and then the other thing I noticed, appointment and eligibility, it used to, any of these positions, I believe, came to the Board of Selectmen as a rubber stamp, that's taken out now. The section 703, appointment and eligibility, when the town manager appoints a department head, I thought when I looked at the old version, it included the Board of Selectmen in the process to approve the appointment, and it's no longer in here.
702 or 703?
703, sorry, Melissa,
It's in 702.
It's in 702.
but I'm looking at,
Look at the
It
first line in
says to be taken
702.
with the approval of the selectmen.
The first sentence.
The first sentence,
in
702.
oh, I was reading at the bottom, sorry.
That's okay.
Appointed
That's why we
in the
put things
manner-
early.
Okay, okay, so it's still here, it's just in a different place.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, sorry, I,
Some of the things we tried to move around so they weren't hard to find, and you moved them up front so it was clear
Right away.
that
Right.
it was that it was
And then
there.
everything below it
Yes.
applies to what is listed
and I
above.
wrote it at the
Lot.
bottom, so I thought it went with 703.
There was a lot of it, we had to move around.
Okay. There's a lot to go through here, so.
Any other questions on 7, because my favorite chapter's coming up?
Yeah.
Gosh.
That was the goal.
We're gonna eliminate taxes in the charter too, Chris, is that what we're doing?
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
What country are we living in? So chapter 8, finance and taxation.
I'm gonna breathe on that one.
I don't have
Wait,
the
did you
cliff
have
notes.
something
I'm trying to read it.
There's a lot.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
It's about the Parks and Rec Department.
She's back in 7.
Oh, where are we?
I'm in 704F in the new charter.
704.
And this is in both charters, but I'm just questioning it. It says the Parks and Rec Commission, the commission weighs in on the appointment or removal of the director as a non-elected body. I just was curious, is this the only board that does that? I mean,
No, I think the library trustees,
The library trustee
Library,
says the same
Board of
thing.
Finance.
Board of
That's safe.
Finance.
okay.
still, it's the vested authorities, but again, these are my perspective is, these are appointed boards and commissions that provide us advice. We would wanna get the advice of the people who have volunteered and are more close to what's happening, as a decision's being made.
But the ultimate authority does not lie with them.
No, that's exactly my point.
Right.
But we have the benefit of
Okay,
getting
so
that
just
advice.
consult, okay.
Right.
Okay, this seems odd to me. And then I just clarify, 7, I think this is in both too, but I'd never noticed it. Board of Selectmen needs to be informed of work done by Public Works on behalf of the Board of Ed, and we must recoup the charges. I'm just reading that in the times of the budget, it says that in 704G. So just something that we're supposed to be doing, I'm assuming we do that. Anyway, that's all.
We didn't change that, so.
I just saw it and we're starting the budget, so I kinda like that was in here, so,
It's probably an interdepartmental charge.
well, okay.
We
Okay.
didn't remove it.
Your favorite chapter, go.
Okay, on 8.
Mine's not my
Okay, so chapter 8,
my favorite at all.
We
we
spent a lot of time.
we spent a lot of time on chapter 8. We received a lot of written and public testimony on chapter 8. I would say that
Oh, gee.
I don't even know how to start. I don't even know how to start on this chapter, I'll be honest with you. I think there was some more clarity provided in chapter 8 with regard to what Board of Finance can request staff to do, there was, or not do, because we didn't want it to be a burden on staff to constantly providing reports, but we wanted to also make sure that they were getting reports in a timely fashion so they can make decisions regarding things that are very important to the town that affect our bond ratings and our ability to finance things, all of that. We talked a lot about the audit process. It's an independent auditor. The audit has to be published. The Board of Finance is selecting the auditor. We talked a lot about the reporting standards between the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education, because the way that things are reported are different, and they wanted one form that looked the same, but the way that the Board of Education has to report to the state is a little bit different than the way that the Board of Selectmen's budget is reported by the Board of Finance. So there was a lot of discussion around that. Paul, you can help me with this one because you're on the Board of Finance.
What we tried to do here,
Before.
there's a lot here in this report.
Yeah.
We tried to clarify what the role of the Board of Finance was, and also in working with town staff, with the town manager, and the fact that it was something where we didn't want to give additional authority to the Board of Finance. By the same token, we didn't want to take anything away that was of material consequences. All right, we wanted to clarify what the line between the finance director / treasurer and the Board of Finance was, so that they could get reports, but not overwhelm town staff with reports that weren't needed for the completion of their role, their statutory role by general statutes. So we did get a lot of input from the chair of the finance board, and we looked at that very thoroughly. But we also tried to keep any changes that we made as to high level and clarify what we thought needed to be done. So you'll see up in here, there was we kept in as far as the Board of Finance being the budget making authority. That was already in the charter. We moved that up front. We clarified some of the verbiage around supplemental appropriations so that was clear, because it was all in like one big paragraph. All right, so we tried to break that up regarding appropriations, break that up regarding transfers, and also with respect to audits. That was one thing that we requested to make sure that stayed in there and it was clarified what the audits were. Also, with respect to the retirement funds, as to the role with respect to the retirement funds. So you'll see a lot of those things were the language was clarified, organized, but yet we didn't want the Board of Finance to become the new Board of Selectmen. All right?
Mm-hmm.
By the same token, we also recognize that under the current structure, the finance director / treasurer doesn't just support the Board of Selectmen any longer. They also support the Board of Ed. Okay, so you can't have everything exactly the same because of, in many cases, state statute reports for the Board of Ed that what they have to do is different than what the Board of Selectmen does. So you gotta clarify that and say, look, the town staff can't be required to do every single report is the same for both boards. So that's what we tried to make sure that was clear.
One other thing that was changed was the capital improvement plan.
Mark, you had made a suggestion on that.
Had provided a memo that it's be 5 years instead of 4, so it's longer.
No, six.
Six.
It says
No,
six.
6 to 5.
6 to 5.
Right,
Yeah, it
6
says
to
4
5.
in here, it's wrong.
Okay,
Yeah, just the typo.
so this is If you go to the.
Cause we have 6 now.
Go to the chart, yeah, 6 to 5, based on the memo.
including the current year,
Yep.
Whereas before it was the current year plus 5.
That's where it's confusing.
Okay.
If you wanna go to, can you click to the
I
next slide?
can't, cause my, oh, it worked this time.
Also, we added regarding the union negotiations to make sure that that was clear as well.
Which we've referenced in other
Yep,
sections.
and information analysis and policies, this was a big one, we spent a lot of time on this one. Again, it gets back to what you can ask town staff to provide. And there was a lot of there was a lot of discussion around that, well, what happens if we don't get this report? Can we, ding the finance director? And it was like, no, you can't do that. You gotta, if there's any disputes, you work through the town manager on those disputes. Budget preparation, clarifying the financial, the dates, also clarifying the what actually is the town budget versus the annual budget. Try to clarify that because oftentimes that was confusing as to
Confusing to the electors.
what it was. The town budget, Board of Selectmen, annual budget, Board of Selectmen, and Board of Ed are lumped together. So let's see, I think that was the things of substance.
Thank you.
I'm reading this, I just wanna read out loud. It says that, well, first of all, did you address any of the timelines? Cause I've just in my terms
talked
and
about the
years, people have
timelines at
talked
length.
about,
Yeah, we did.
okay, and they're the same,
Same.
correct?
We do not, yeah.
Okay, cause that has come up over the
It's as
years.
bad as it's gonna get, Wendy.
Yeah.
Okay, we gotta keep moving. I just
And Wendy, just to clarify
Yeah.
that, a lot of it has to do primarily with, a lot of the conversation was around the Board of Education because of the way the state mandates work with the Board of Education. For the Board of Education to do a budget earlier means it's not going to be anywhere near accurate because the state mandates haven't come out, the state budget hasn't come out. So because they're
Rework.
tied so much to what the state's decisions are, for them to present you something earlier is impossible to be accurate or anywhere near accurate because it's a guessing game at that point for
Well,
them.
isn't that similar though, I could point to the grand list, don't we get the finalization mark at the end of January or something? And so Mark's already supposed to be well into his budget and done with it, and we don't even have the updated grand list from the assessor, which is always, isn't that always a time crunch? I'm just asking you.
And also,
And it impacts.
and also the governor's budget, I mean,
And the
even
governor's
on the
budget.
municipal side, it's a challenge, I mean, bigger cities who are getting a lot more in municipal aid, it makes a bigger difference. You'll see in my budget presentation, we're down next year in the governor's budget only about 150,000, I say only, but you're right, the grand list growth has been reduced anyway, so we haven't been that concerned, but your point is well taken.
Okay, just the timing of that.
We certainly couldn't do it any earlier, I think.
Yeah, okay.
That was the discussion is primarily because the Board of Education is such a large piece of the budget that
Well, and then just in the budget, 802 budget preparation, when I read this, I kind of, I don't know, I just made a note here, the town budget is first presented by the town manager and adopted, then presented by the selectmen. It's really the town manager's budget, then it's our budget, and then it's adopted and presented to the.
You gotta adopt his budget.
you have to adopt his
But
budget.
we change his budget and it becomes called our budget,
Right.
so why does
That's where
it?
you're adopting it though. That's exactly where
That's
you're
how you make it
adopting
ours.
Right.
Okay, I just felt like it never mentioned, it says we adopt it and presented by the selectmen. So that it's just a picky comment, it doesn't say, we could just take it and adopt it and then move on, but it doesn't say that we make it our budget, right? We add to the town manager's budget or change it based on our policies or decisions. It doesn't necessarily account for that in C, but if I wanna bring that back up, I'll bring it back up. Okay?
Any other questions on 8?
The only thing I would ask, and it's technically part of another section, but regarding the Board of Finance, and I understand that is generally around the state, but did you, and it's something I've asked, but did you look at the elected terms for the Board of Finance? I know generally around the state, they there's a state, generally 6-year staggered terms. There are a few towns, Berlin and Richfield particularly, that have 4-year terms, staggered 4-year terms. And, when you say that the community and our taxpayers and then our voters want accountability, transparency, would that not only also apply to the Board of Finance when, they have, there's a considerable amount of power that they have, even though you're making sure that the powers for the Board of Selectmen are staying where they appropriately belong, that's still a large, so appreciating staggered terms, but they have one of the longer terms, elected terms in our charter and in our form of government. Would it be something to look at to shorten those so that, again, there's transparency, there's accountability, and the voters can vote appropriately for if they would like a change in the Board of Finance? Because they're long terms.
Yeah, did you look at the term?
We did look at the terms.
Okay.
And the stability of the Board of Finance was, and Paul, you can speak to this as being a former member of that, was very important because we have the ability to vote people, because they're staggered already. We've got the ability to vote people on or off, often enough.
Yeah, I guess because every 2 years, there's two people up.
There's two people up.
And I think.
And also, that's not the legislative
body.
It's more a technical board and as far as knowing finance. And again, it's every 2 years you could change that over. So I think that was one of the key things that you have that. And also the longer the term, it does take it out of the political pressure of having to run like either every 2 years or every 4 years. So we did discuss that and didn't make any changes on that.
I know I asked people personally, but I wanted to ask to the public as well.
That's fine.
That's a good question.
Yep. And I think the library board of trustees is also like 6 years or something
Yes.
like that. So maybe 7, I don't know. But
6.
yeah.
Anything else on 8?
I'm just an overall question, we didn't reduce any of our finance director and treasurer's responsibilities, correct? Or impede them, I haven't gone in detail through chapter 8, I'm just gonna be transparent here. The red line version would be helpful for this chapter. But just confirming, we're just basically firming things up, we're not taking away anything from finance director, treasurer, or town manager in the things, it's just really defining it more clearly.
Yes.
Okay.
And one thing we try to keep consistent earlier on the boards in another chapter was, just not everyone from the same board could come to Mark or any other one and says, 5 people from the Board of Finance want these reports. No, it has to be funneled to the Board of Finance. If it's, whatever commission it might be, there has to be some structure that head of that board knows what's going on.
Yeah, I like that, that's good, yeah.
So we didn't, there was discussion to repeat it again in the Board of Finance, and we said, no, it's once and only once, and that's the rule for all boards.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd have chaos if you didn't.
And we wanted to make sure that you, as a board, continue to have the same legislative powers that you have, because you were elected to those positions to do that, we didn't want to take anything away from you. We did hear from Melissa and Amy, and we took their input as well, so we tried to balance all of the comments, because there was quite a bit in this chapter. We voted
Almost unanimous.
almost unanimously. It was, so,
On almost all the issues, yeah.
on all the issues in this particular chapter.
Very good.
Okay.
Good for you.
Okay. No changes in chapter 9, and chapter 10 is just minor date changes because it would be when and if a revised charter is adopted, when it would go into effect. So that's the only date changes in there. The last slide is really, I've referenced it a couple of times, is things that came up during our meetings.
Sorry.
Oh,
Chapter 9, just a quick question for you. 9:1.
Curtis, I'm sorry, you scare me every time you chime in.
Sorry.
On the.
I'm just listening, it's a great conversation here. In 901, it says the selectmen during their first term of office.
Yeah,
Why does it have to say the first term of office?
I
Just
saw that
clarification
too.
for me on that.
yeah, I didn't get that either, thanks.
About,
We don't. Yeah, explain that.
Town employees, chapter, section 901.
901.
The selectmen during their first term of office under the provisions of this charter shall adopt an ordinance providing for the establishment of position descriptions for all town employees except employees of the Board of Education. Such ordinance shall include personnel guidelines, job descriptions, salary programs, and such other provisions as the selectmen may deem to be appropriate and necessary. And I think Curtis is asking, why does it need to specifically say during their first term of office?
Because that's when you're setting your priorities for
Yeah,
your.
but would it, but this is my second term of office. So would it that negate?
Bob, you can clarify this as a legal.
That language is a carryover from, nothing was changed.
Change
Nothing
to
was
the
changed.
first selectmen form of government, it's that, I think it's that
Right.
old,
It may
Bob.
be a carryover from that.
So when you first went to that form from town meeting, I mean, this should be struck in my view,
Yeah, I was
though.
gonna
The
say,
entire
this
thing
makes
should
no
be-
Yeah, we can
sense.
change that, that's all I'm saying, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah, me neither.
Cause it
I
pertained
agree.
to the very first Board of Selectmen
Yeah,
in 1952 or whenever.
right.
Or the flip side, Bob, is it's my first term.
It was
Kinda.
like,
So I'm just gonna do it all, so.
Right.
Okay, we're gonna set up the whole
Really meant
government.
so that Mike would do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, if the commission
And
was,
the first ordinance is to pay the town.
recommend the commission take a look at that.
Yeah, we need to, because it doesn't make sense. I agree with what
Curtis,
Okay,
the head in the room.
10, we already got through 10,
We got through
move
10.
back to
Recommendations
With that,
there.
and then the rest, these
Oh,
are
right,
just
right.
recommendations to the Board of Selectmen for your consideration based on the conversations and input that we've received from the public. This, you can do with it what you want, this is up to you. We do strongly recommend, even if you don't establish reviewing the ordinances right away, that you amend the code of chapter 34 regarding the Board of Trustees, because the language is inaccurate and it all the language in this ordinance goes back to 1968, and it's before we even have the library that we have today. So I think for clarity for the library director and the Board of Trustees, you should address this sooner than just all the ordinances. And then this also references the Yukon report regarding conservation, inland wetlands, open space definitions, and that report is in the appendix. And then we've talked about some of these things already. There is in this charter a proposal for when the town manager is unable to, for inability to perform their functions. We didn't wanna be prescriptive in the charter about how you do that, but you should establish a policy as a Board of Selectmen, how you establish an acting town manager. And then working with the town clerk to create some sort of document
Yeah.
or mapping for
Yeah, we're working on that
unaffiliated
for a
voters.
couple of years.
Yeah. And then one of the things that was added, it was working with the town manager to ensure that all of our current forms of communication are working. So there was a lot of input that we received that people weren't getting the listserv notifications, that things weren't on the website, things were just making sure that the systems that we have in place are function as we intended to function, and to test those things because there was comments, and again, it goes back to transparency.
Correct. And we can be as transparent as we want, but if the functions that
Right.
serve the transparency aren't working, then
Right.
we can,
Get the comments.
We can't just assume that
right.
whatever we've got in place is working correctly for all, and we just wanna,
Yeah, that's heard a lot about.
we've heard a lot about that.
We all have.
Does anybody, I think we're through?
Yes,
Do you have any final wrap up that you wanna give or?
no.
Cut and run.
I will be present at the public hearing, so
Okay, great.
if there are additional questions that you have, I will make sure I am here. I've asked my fellow commissioners to be here if they're able, because we wanna be able to provide as much information as we can about why things were discussed or proposed for changes
Okay,
as
so
much as possible.
so just a couple things, and the public hearing on the charter for the Board of Selectmen is Monday, okay? And then from there, we have between the 23rd and March 6th to close the public hearing, either create a new one or keep this one open. It has to close by the 6th. And then that's where the 14 days come into play. So there is an option to continue that public hearing on that Monday. We have a meeting scheduled for March 2nd, which is a budget meeting, but we could always leave it open. That it gives us a little bit extra time on the back end. Because
15-day period.
Yeah, cause we're in the middle, it's all overlapping for us, so we've got a lot of homework to do here. So I just wanted to point that out to the public. And then eventually it will go to referendum in November. But if we send it back to you guys, you guys have work to do too. Yep. Okay?
Yeah, just to be clear, if you recommend any changes, it goes back to the commission considers and acts or doesn't act on those changes and then sends the final revised charter to you.
To vote.
And then you vote on it. You can accept the whole thing, you can reject the whole thing, or you can accept several provisions and not other provisions, so you have a lot of latitude.
Okay.
But we'll go over all
We'll
that.
get there when we get there.
Yeah.
All right, everybody all set up here?
Yeah,
That's great.
thank you, that's a
Thank you
huge
for the
effort.
work.
Yeah, thank you guys so
Thank
much. A clap, everybody. Okay, I would
Thank
love
you
to,
for all your hard work, appreciate it.
can we take a 5 minutes from a break?
Yeah, sure.
Let's make a motion to recess.
Second.
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great.
225
Curtis, you can recess.
We're gonna turn this over to the town manager for the town of Simsbury town manager's recommended budget for fiscal year 2027.
Curtis said, this is what he was trying to say over the loudspeaker,
Where is-
sorry.
we can't start
I have
without
to
Curtis.
leave the office and go to the hotel, I'll be a few minutes late, just so you know.
Okay.
That's what he was trying to tell us
Got it.
over the,
Over the
yeah,
PA,
and
over
I was
the-
like, we can't hear you.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Wendy, can I start? Good to
Floor
go?
is yours.
The floor is mine. Thank you, everybody. I want to just start by thanking our friends on the Charter Revision Commission, because it was a lengthy but a really good presentation that I think answered a lot of questions. And one of the things I would just comment on before we start is that the commission also was notable in what they didn't change. And under our charter, it's the town manager's responsibility to present you with a recommended budget. It's only a recommended budget, it's the starting point. A lot of work goes into this every year, department heads, finance, our budget director, our library director, we've got a lot of staff here tonight. At the end, I'll try to give everybody a quick nod for the work that they did. We started early again this year. It's a particularly challenging budget. I think I say that every year, but what's interesting is challenging for different reasons. I think the last time I was here before you, it was challenging because of something like 0.06 grand list growth. One of the slides you'll see in a moment shows you our grand list growth is 0.9, almost 1%, generated $1 million. I wish it was 3, but it's better than it was. So when I say a challenging budget, I want to just clarify at the top what I mean by that. I mean that we've got roughly $500,000 less in investment income projected here. We've got significant increases to health insurance costs, and we're self-insured. We'll talk a little bit about these things at the budget workshop, which is, as you know, Chair, scheduled for the 28th. And I think that's gonna be an opportunity really to get into a lot of the nitty-gritty. So I wanna keep tonight just high level and give the board a chance to digest all of this. And then as you'll see on the last slide, the budget calendar, I think, does give all of you enough time to really get into the each line item and a couple of the initiatives that you're gonna hear about tonight. It is also worth noting that our taxpayers have faced increases the last few years. And as you read today in the budget message that went up online, this budget is for them. It is, as you'll see in a moment, the lowest percentage increase in the mill rate since I've been here. Continuing a trend of, I believe, 4 straight decreases in the percentage increase. It's still an increase, but we're trying to get a handle on that. With that, we'll move into the first slide, please, Tom. I'm gonna keep this in the same order that the board is used to and the public's used to seeing this. And again, not to get into the weeds on any of these, but there's 2 numbers on this slide that I wanna just focus on for maybe a minute each. If you go to the top all the way to the right, the percentage change to both the education operating budget and to the municipal side, you'll see at the BOE, it's 2.77. Town and municipal, our side is 2.99. With all of these blended in together, you're at 2.24. You see the use of reserves down, that 900,000. I do want to just take a second to remind the board that this is used for debt service smoothing. That's the use of reserves that's on this page. It doesn't represent the total use of reserves, but it represents the amount that we agreed with our colleagues on the Board of Finance to help smooth debt service costs. And it is decreasing, as you'll see, from 1.3 to 900,000, so that's very good. Quickly, on the 2.77 and the 2.99. We're gonna talk tonight briefly about what the Board of Finance guidance was. You'll recall that when that was first given to us, it was 3.5% expressed as an expense side function, right? A calculation of expenses say very clear we should not look to increase spending by more than 3.5%. And when I say it's an expense side number, what I'm saying and pointing out is that it is, completely exclusive of whatever you do on the revenue side. So when guidance is expressed as an expense side only number, it's really, in my view, tying our hands in terms of generating other revenue, looking at options that might make the mill rate a little bit lower. It almost tells us to focus exclusively on expenses and that you must cut. One of the things you'll come away with tonight, I hope, as you see that we hit guidance, and in fact, by some calculations, we exceeded guidance. We are where we said we would be, and we are where we were challenged to be. But what I want to demonstrate tonight is how hard that was. And in fact, were it not for some of the things that you're going to see momentarily, there wasn't any chance at all that we would be able to do that. Next slide. So a couple of highlights quickly. Really happy to tell the board that we did do zero-based budgeting for the library department this year. As you saw in the budget message, the plan, the strategy from management is to use zero-based budgeting with one department at a time, maybe a couple of the smaller ones at a time, and to rotate this practice through each budget cycle. So this year it was the library. Next year we plan on using ZBB as an approach to DPW. So we've been putting our toe in the water with this. I encourage you when you get time to spend a little extra time on the library budget. Just about everything's in your budget book except the analysis and documents that went behind the ZBB. Those can be found, if you could show them quickly. They're all posted on the library website. And there is a link to that within your budget book. So if you're looking at your budget book online and you see the budget narrative at the beginning, I think it's page 48 or 49, you'll see a link. Click on that link. It takes you to the public library's website, and you'll see on the left all of those attachments there, including the org chart. There's a narrative there, a description about every library program. I encourage you to take a look at that. There's a master matrix that looks at an analysis of all of the library programs and spending amongst the 3 divisions there. And there's, of course, the organizational chart. Back to the main presentation. So we just wanted to point that out at the beginning of our time with you tonight, that the ZBB for the library generated some savings. It also looked at the organization as a whole. And I want to take a moment to thank the Library Board of Trustees as well as the friends of the library that were collaborating with us. As you saw in the message, I think some of you know I filled you in on this, and that we had the help of an intern, I call her an intern, doing her capstone project from Simsbury High School, and Badra Amash, who has been attending a lot of the library programs and has helped us with this. And you'll get to meet Badra at the workshop later this month, and she's looking forward to presenting. Also, the second highlight here is one I want to spend a little bit of time on tonight quickly. Restructuring of CNR is something that I've had an opportunity to talk to a few of you about, but I think it's very important that we spend a minute on this now. So for those watching at home who might not be familiar with this, and quickly, CNR stands for Capital Non-Recurring. It historically has been a part of the town budget where we could pay cash for capital and spend some money wisely so that we do not always bond for these capital purchases, and therefore we save some money in debt service costs down the road. Capital non-recurring has been historically funded by a prepayment model that went into place some 20 years ago. And it's generated for the municipal side about $416,000 a year that we could spend on CNR. And interestingly, at the Board of Ed, it generates about $550,000. Neither of those numbers, in fact, the whole model of CNR budgeting has not changed since it was rolled out 20 years ago. This is my third budget presented to you as a board. I think the first two budgets, both I and our finance director made a pretty impassioned plea to increase the CNR funding levels, because for our side, 416,250 was not enough to fund CNR. And so it didn't seem to be sustainable to us. We tried in my first budget, we tried to do that, we were not successful. In the second budget, I tried again to do it, we were not successful. In the third budget, I'm not trying again to do it because the model is dead. It is not going to be sustainable, and I want to tell you why. Because in addition to the 416,250, we've been funded by capital reserves. And the amount that is released from capital reserves for you to spend in your budget on CNR is a moving target. It's a number that is primarily funded, entirely funded, by the surpluses from the prior year. I encourage you to read the budget message on this subject because it's really at the heart of what we're going to be talking about during our budget workshop. If you imagine raising the mill rate and taxing your citizens and generating a surplus year after year and using that surplus to purchase capital the following year, purchase capital that has not yet been identified, it's not disclosed in the budget. The question is whether you as a board feel that's transparent or not. The question is whether the taxpayers who you are taxing, that cohort of taxpayers, are voting on the budget at referendum, knowing what that money is going to be spent on. And the answer to that question, in my view, is no. They don't know, because a good amount of it could fall to the bottom line as a surplus. It could fund, and it very appropriately, it funds CNR. The problem is that we don't know how much, and therefore we can't plan on it. Now, I've been challenged to do a capital plan for 6 years, now 5 if you adopt the charter revision. My predecessor, interim town manager Lee Erdman, had challenged staff to do a 12-year plan. Recently, the Board of Finance suggested that we should be doing a 20-year plan. I just want to talk about the capital plan for a minute, not so much in the detail of the capital plan, but how important it is. Right? I don't think that we can be doing a 12-year plan if we can't get the 6-year plan right. That's number one. I do think that you've got a plan for the big purchases, school construction being the biggest one, right? $100 million, all of those big capital purchases. I believe that. But we haven't done a good job with capital planning. When I became your town manager, I looked at the capital plans for the last 10 years, and each one is for 6 years. And better than 80% of the projects were pushed out 1 year at a time every year. It was a dumping ground in year 6 for projects that you wanted to keep on the capital plan but never came to fruition. Mm-hmm. That's no way to run the town of Simsbury. It just isn't. We want to and you're not going to get there in 1 year. You might not get there in 2. But I guarantee you that if we work on this together for the next few years, our capital plans can be the best plans for future years that any municipality in the state of Connecticut has. We have the talent in-house right now
to do that. Our finance director has been providing the Board of Finance with modeling going out 10 years, showing exactly what I'm talking about tonight. All we need is the leadership from our elected boards to adopt some of the modeling, to embrace your town manager's view that the CNR method of funding things has to change. Now, one more minute on this, if you can indulge me. We do have to pay for some capital purchases with cash. The point is that has to be budgeted in the budget, either in CIP or in operating. And so what this budget does for the first time is it eliminates CNR as a classification, as a budget class, and it does one of three things. It either cuts the item, and we're not gonna spend the money on it now, and that was a significant part of this. It moves it to CIP, where it can be paid for either by bonding or by capital reserves. Just because something is in the CIP part of the budget doesn't mean that it's bonded. So you can still stay under the Board of Finance guidance with respect to $5 million a year for 10 years and so forth, right? So very quickly on this, your CNR items are not in the budget book this year. They're either not being purchased or they're being paid for, and you'll see them in CIP or you'll see them in operating. Finally, I will say that weaning yourself off of this is a challenge. You can't just take CNR, and dump it all in operating. Imagine what that would do to the mill rate. You've got to be very strategic about doing it. In year one, you've got to really tighten your belt, and that's what we did. We asked our departments to only submit requests that were absolutely imperative in year one to help us make this transition. It gets a little easier in year two and a little easier in year three. So I won't belabor that now, but at the budget workshop, we're going to show you some detail about what items are where did they go to? Did they go to CIP? Did they go to operating? And more importantly, how are they funded, right? Next slide. So what we're all really interested in here, and this is worth maybe 2 minutes, the taxpayer impact. We've used the $450,000 threshold historically. We didn't change that. So what you're seeing is something that you're used to seeing every year as part of the budget process. If this budget as presented were to be adopted, it would be, as I said at the top, a 2.1% increase to the mill rate. And it would be a 2.99% increase to expense side, to our expense side on the municipal side. The change to the average taxpayer then is $227. And there'd be no change to the motor vehicle mill rate. Next slide. This is, everybody has a favorite slide. This is the one I was referencing earlier. It's really important, I think. And it's one of the Board of Finance's best metrics, I think, is a comparison of the mill rate increases to our neighboring and peer communities. I know this is a little small, so I'm just going to focus on, if you look at the left column for Simsbury in 23-24, it was a 5.18% increase. The following year, 4.68. In 25-26, which was last year, 2.83. And as proposed right now, it's 2.1, is that an 8? 2.18. If we can continue that trend for another year, we'd likely get it under 2%. And of course, that's really a function of state aid, grand list growth. And I will say it's less a function of expenses on the municipal side, because as you'll see in a minute, the Board of Education side is about 72% of the budget. Next slide. And here you have it. We put this up every year. I won't spend a lot of time on it in the interest of time, but clearly education and debt represent the biggest portion of the town's budget. And we have no control over it, at least not on the municipal side. And benefits and insurance is obviously fixed costs and are rapidly rising. Next slide. This slide just depicts what you saw visually a moment ago. If you take the first two numbers, 69.76 and 7, you're already looking at 70-some%. And as I said, benefits and insurance. I guess the point we try to make here is that you as a board have a very, very small piece of the overall town budget. with which to meet the Board of Finance guidance and with which to look for cuts and efficiencies, right? If you've got 1,000 budget lines on the Board of Ed side, you got 1,000 places to look for savings. If you've got 400 lines, you've only got 400 lines to look at, and that's kind of where we are. Next slide. The general fund revenue, again, this is one you see every year. The numbers are just changing a little bit, mainly because of grand list growth. The point here is one I make repeatedly, and that is the largest percentage of our revenue is coming from the property tax. One of the things we'd like to challenge ourselves to do is to drop that, next slide, to drop that percentage from 87.27. Even if you can marginally get that down, I say 2 or 3%, by increasing revenues elsewhere, by, innovative efficiencies, or at least just holding the line on expense side growth. That's really important because if you look at other municipalities that have other better sources or a better diversification of revenue sources, their property taxpayers, their real estate owners are not paying the bulk of it as they are now. Next slide. This shows you and it's in your budget books, it shows you that the 0.9% grand list growth. And I'll just draw your attention to the breakdown of that. We try to display this every year. Is it coming from real estate? Got a little help from motor vehicle. Again, what would be the projected mill rate? One thing I've been asked, I always forget, is that this is not inclusive of the fire district, and we don't know what the fire district may do. So that's always something that's in flux there. Next slide. With a couple of things in the budget that I know you as a board are going to pay particular attention to, and I've had the opportunity to meet with both our first selectman and our public safety chair with respect to this, and I know we had the presentation last month from SVAA. This budget, my recommendation is suggesting to the board that you consider funding up to $60,000 in additional support for SVAA for the purchase of a new ambulance. I do want to spend a minute on this just to make sure the board's aware of what we've committed to already and where the funds are coming from. We will be going into the third and final year of the MOU. The next year's operating support that we've already committed to under the terms of that MOU are $160,000. This budget proposes using $60,000 of opioid settlement funds and $100,000 from capital reserves to fund what we've already committed to. The additional $60,000 that I'm recommending the board consider for the purchase of the ambulance would be also coming from capital reserves. The way I presented this in my separate memorandum to the board a few days ago was that what I propose is that we consider matching the capital campaign that SVAA currently has underway. They'd raised, according to their presentation before you a while ago, about $45,000. They may be continuing, I think they're continuing that capital fund fundraising effort. And so, the town could, if this board adopts this, you could match that up to the $60,000. You'd probably be about what they're gonna come in at, I would estimate. Of course, obviously, the board has the discretion to increase this or to decrease it. I will say that having been involved with a couple of you in the negotiations for the original MOU, that it was always envisioned that there would be a need for help on the capital side. At the time we negotiated the MOU, we weren't quite sure what that would be. We put some language in there that that we would assist them with in-kind services in terms of capital planning and things like that. We didn't commit to doing anything from a cash basis, and so this is new. And I'd happy to spend some time with you on this during the budget workshop.
Can I just interject one
Please
comment,
do,
just
yeah.
because you mentioned that the first selectman and public safety chair, we were part of the discussions, but this is not our proposal.
Correct.
I just wanted to clarify that this is the town manager's proposal.
Got it.
Correct.
Next slide. So on economic development, one of the things we did at the library was we were looking to get a position change there, which would take a full-time position, which is currently, the classification is the Business and Career Center Coordinator position that is full-time and currently exists. and convert that to a shared position between the library and economic development here and planning and in my office. This initiative begins to bring the function in-house after many years of outsourcing, and I just want to take a minute on this, and we have some data on this to support it. But there is a proposed reduction of support to Main Street Partners. Currently, they're funded at $85,000. My recommended budget proposes a drop to $35,000. This plan also reduces the library budget while establishing a part-time resource focused on economic development without increasing total town expenditures. Just a moment on this if I can. The proposal is recommending to the board that we take a step back and really make a policy decision, and I'm encouraging you to undertake that this budget cycle. Do we want to continue to outsource the economic development function of the town as it has been for many, many years? And I don't want this in any way to be a statement about the wonderful work that Main Street has been doing for the town for all this time. There's absolutely no negative slant on that at all. What I want to emphasize is that we need to have more, and I've spoken with leadership at Main Street about this, we need to have more control internally over our own destiny. The Main Street model represents a subset of the community and doesn't necessarily align completely with the mission that this board has challenged me to embark on. Economic development is one of the board's, at least the previous board's, primary objectives. Therefore, it became one of mine. One of the things that we've tried to do is we've tried to bolster the work and volunteerism at the EDC and to support that, and also to work with Main Street in this sort of triumvirate approach that includes internal staff and external partners. And what we're finding is that without a clear command and control central authority directing traffic on this important endeavor, we're kind of just blowing in the wind. And I'm recommending that the board consider this as an option to move us forward. I think one of the things I will say, and I'll move on, is that I don't think this board was happy with the status quo. I know that, and I will say, I have no problem saying this publicly, that my review that this board did, my performance review, wasn't very complimentary about the achievements that I've had personally as your town manager on economic development, and I shared with this board those copies again recently. The fact of the matter is that it's your priority, and I'm your town manager, and I'm recommending that you give me the tools I need to do that, and put Main Street aside. We need a part-time resource to do this. And if I came to the board in the current climate, economic climate, and said, I want to add a part-time person on the payroll, or worse, a full-time person with benefits, it would be a non-starter. And it probably should be a non-starter, given what we've just talked about and the burden on our taxpayers. But my point is, Chair, if not now, then when? The reason we've continued this process for so many years is because we're right in the middle. Simsbury is really too small to warrant hiring a full-time economic development director. We're at the point, though, where I think a part-time person could do it. How do you get that part-time person to help us at the administrative level? You reassign duties on your existing staff. And we identified a position at the library, the Business Development Center Coordinator you see on your screen there, as somebody that could be brought into that role and make that position part-time. So this is one component that I want the board to think about, and we'll be happy to talk about it more at the workshop.
Quick question.
Any questions on
Yeah,
that?
quick question.
Yep.
Will we have a job description and resumes and stuff like,
Yep.
and does this have to be a posted position? Or
It was negotiated with the union, and we're working on a memorandum of understanding because clearly it's a subject of collective bargaining to change the job description and so forth. But and I should have at the top thanked our unions for working with us so collaboratively on this and other things throughout the budget process. So yes.
So it would come to it would come to personnel first before I'll look at the schedule.
Yeah,
when we
however
meet
you wanna
next.
do it, Chair. We're agreeable to whatever, policy or procedure you want to follow to make sure that this makes sense to the board. I mean, on its face, it's cost neutral. It gives us puts our toe in the water and gives us an internal resource that we don't have currently and we haven't had for forever. And so I just don't know how you would begin to build that resource if you don't reassign the current staffing. One of the things our union contracts give us is what are called management rights. And we have the ability to adapt those descriptions with this board's approval to meet the changing needs of the organization. Frankly, I would say to anybody who was your town manager, why aren't you bringing more of these to us? Are you going to stay, and let's say there's another town manager standing here making this case, is he or she going to tell you that none of our job descriptions need to be updated or that none of our employees should be reassigned in furtherance of the mission that you yourselves have said is top priority? What are we doing? Next slide.
One quick question.
Yep.
Does that, regardless of where we take that, does that just mean that library position is going to be a half-time position?
No. That's not the discussion that we've had with the unions. What we've tried to do is to both avoid layoffs and to reassign and redeploy people to match the mission as identified by the board. Now, I want to be clear that my answer would be different if we were not at the guidance that was provided. If we hadn't met the guidance, we have achieved that in every sense of the word, both in terms of capital and in terms of operating. We have the lowest presented mill rate increase in years. On the expense side, we've kept the expense growth to what we were challenged to do. It's against that backdrop that we're simply asking to redeploy somebody. And thank you for that question. I think it's important. This slide, and I want to thank Franklin and Tom for putting this together. It's more for the public. The blue line shows our fund balance, unassigned fund balance, where we are right now. And the lines above and below it show target ranges, the minimum says set by the Board of Finance and the maximum. And what this blue line shows you is that in terms of our general fund unassigned fund balance, we are just a little better than in the middle of the pack. They're doing very well with a healthy fund balance. Last night I had the privilege of attending the Board of Finance meeting at which our external auditors presented the annual audit to the Board of Finance. And it was the best audit that any external municipal auditor could give any municipality. So when we say we're a AAA bond rated community, it goes much deeper than that. You've got plenty of AAA bonded, communities that are getting, management comments from their auditors about things. We are in terrific shape, and I want to take a minute to recognize the entire finance department because I've heard a lot of those presentations from municipal auditors, and that was the best one I've ever heard. Next slide.
They gave Amy quite a bit of kudos.
They did, and rightly so.
Well done, Amy.
Thank you.
Next slide.
I just want a clean opinion.
Yes, that's it. We got a clean opinion. We really did.
Yeah, it was nice.
I promised to be quick and I am. I'm pretty much done. I will take a few questions. The budget dates, obviously, you all know. Next up is the workshop we're looking forward to very much on the 28th. That's a Saturday. I believe that we've got quite a group aligned. Almost all of our department heads will be there to answer specific questions and to make sure that you've got a full comfort level with the budget as presented. Our budget director did ask me to ask you, as we did last year, if any of you have questions ahead of that, if you could please email Melissa and the budget team so we can do our research on whatever it is you need and try to be as prepared. We can also get you the answers to your questions in advance, so I think that'll help our dialogue as well. One final thing, and then I'll take a few questions. I just want to end where I started with this CNR thing. I think if we were able to adequately fund it, it would be one thing. But without the ability to do that, I think we've got a real problem here, and I just take a minute to tell you. Every year that I give you a budget, I'm looking at budget lines that were underspent. So say we have an expense line and we didn't spend it. That's what we're going to cut the following year unless somebody can tell us why it was over budgeted in the first place. The same thing's true with revenues. If we consistently turn in revenues that are higher than projected, we need to increase the revenue, because if you don't do that, your mill rate isn't really accurate, right? So what I'm trying to say is, in a long-winded way, is that every year the surplus should get less, it should get lower. And so you're going to have less money to fund capital reserves. and you are working yourself out of the very system that funds CNR. So you've got to wean yourself of it now. If you don't do it now, at a time and place of our choosing, it will be done for us when we have a budget at year end with a $500,000 surplus and not enough to even fund the CNR as it is right now. And then lastly, I know some of you know this, I want to remind you, 2 years from now is a reval. I will tell you, as a former tax collector, and you all know this, that the likely shift in commercial values to residential values is in all likelihood going to give you a 7 or 8% increase as a residential taxpayer in this town without any other increases. So if you're looking at a 3 or a 4 in 2 years with that shift, it's a tsunami that is coming, and I think that's something that can only be addressed by 2 things: granulous growth, which we're working on, and that's why economic development is so important. And the second thing is to wean ourselves off CNR and make sure that we know what we can spend our money on and we can plan accordingly. And with that, thank you for your time, 22 and a half minutes, and I'll take any questions.
Franklin's like, yes.
I don't get the applause Chris Barnett gets, but but it was
Yeah,
good.
I mean, I'm opening it up
Yeah.
to questions. I asked a couple, so I'm happy to help.
I'll go. Aren't we in the 3rd year of a MOU with Main Street that you are reneging on what you agreed to for a 36-month term?
No, not at all, and I appreciate the question. The MOU was written specifically in envisioning that this might happen, and there's a provision in it very clearly that says that the funding level is subject to appropriation each year. And in fact, that's a provision that should be in many of our deals, because when the fiscal footprint of the town changes, when guidance from the Board of Finance makes it almost near impossible to hit, you have to look at making those cuts. So the answer to your question is the MOU has language in it that makes this totally appropriate.
It makes it viable, it doesn't make it ethical. Regardless, isn't Sin Thomas's, who is the business department person, salary $130,000?
No, I don't believe so. I don't have it in front of me. I think that it's 7.
However, it makes negligible that cut to Main Street, who has been our only viable economic development. Last year, we heard about defibrillators as economic development, and a bunch of weird things, and I'll be honest, I take issue with Main Street being persecuted to the point of putting them down to 35,000. You have breached it to the point of insulting.
Okay, can we put the Main Street slide up? So I appreciate that.
Our job to
Yeah, no, we'll
advocate
discuss
for-
it. No,
Mitigate
it's just-
it over-
I didn't see
yeah.
anyone else slashed like that
Well,
in this entire presentation.
respectfully, Steve, that's just not the case. VNA, the visiting nurses were cut 50% from 40 to 20. There were other
That's
cuts.
got other variables though, they're
Well,
regional.
So does Main Street. I mean, and again, it's just a recommended budget, but
It's not
if I could reply.
Sure. Yes, you can.
This is the funding for Main Street over the last 9 years. Add it up, we didn't total it, but that's a lot of money.
Okay.
It's just a lot of money. I've gotta say, Steve, as your town manager, I just want an opportunity to build an internal footprint to get some of this work done. If we can find the money to continue to fund Main Street, I'm all for it.
We'll discuss this in the
And-
actual
Yeah.
negotiation.
I do see you put the outside agency applications out here because there was some in there that I didn't really understand. And that's gonna be a discussion that we would have here on who's getting funded and who's not getting funded.
Yeah.
On the
was-
28th.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
are they all included? Are they all in the just making sure?
Even ones that didn't make the
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing I wanted to point out too, as far as the capital goes, I mean, I know I've heard that other towns don't have a CNR and a CIP, they just have a CIP,
That's
right?
correct.
I mean, I've heard, I think Melissa's talked about that. The question I have, well, one thing I have is it would have been very helpful if the items that were moved from CNR to the CIP were labeled that instead of labeling them as new items, cause I had to go back and find them, like the Greenway improvements, I thought that was a new item, but it was really from CNR. So just pointing that out to save yourself time, maybe we could just
Yeah.
make sure those are
Sure.
Like we can label them
Clarify there.
former CNR.
and a lot of the problem with CNR, and I don't know how you're gonna do it yet, cause I haven't really looked at the budget, is moving them to operating, a lot of times last year, we struggled to move things back to reserves because we couldn't impact the mill rate.
Right.
So that's gonna be interesting on how that functions, right? Or are we just not doing certain things that we really should be doing and haven't
Well,
gotten that far?
we still use capital reserves to fund it, it's just not displayed as a separate and standalone budget capital. You can still use capital reserves, assuming you have them. I believe we've got about 5 million in capital reserves. This budget plan between CIP and operating is looking to use roughly 1.8 million. Which under 2 million and probably pretty close to what or less than what anybody expected, even if there had been CNR. In the budget message, we do provide the board with some details about the amount above the 5-year payback that's been funded over the last couple of years by the Board of Finance, for which we're very grateful. The problem and the point we've made is that comes at the end of a budget process, and so you haven't been able to rely on it as part of your strategic planning.
So I haven't, again, I'm speaking without looking, but if there's items that are using reserves in the operating budget that are ongoing, you're kind of locking yourself into.
No, we don't make any cliffs.
Okay.
I really don't think so.
Okay, well, and I haven't,
Yeah.
because you just mentioned some of those are using reserves, so like I said, I haven't seen them yet. And what is you mentioned 1.8, how much could we use in reserves if we had a true town need? Like, is that the accurate figure? Is there some leeway there?
So what's available is just shy of the 5 million that Mark referenced. I have put together several models for the Board of Finance that gives, do you wanna build it up and use it for a large debt service project down the line? Do you wanna use a little bit every year? Do you want to phase it out and put it in operating? So there's actually a lot of choices and options, and I can take you through some if you'd like.
Yeah.
But 1.8, in one of the models I did, I built it up. I believe it was just shy of 2 million, I'll double check, every year, cause that's what we've been spending, and then I put an escalator in.
Okay,
So it's right around.
okay, all right, thanks.
what would be typical.
Just to know when I go through where we are.
That was a good question. I think to your point, Chair, I'd just say no cliffs. A sustainable, structurally balanced budget. And if I could just go back to that first slide with the 299 and the 277, I want to end with a point that's kind of important to me personally, and that is as a former finance director. On the Board of Ed side, any revenue is really captured as a credit to expenses. And so when the Board of Ed comes in at 2.77, that number is reflective of credits, offsets that reduce expenses. On the municipal side, I have a revenue budget and I have an expense budget. And so for the most part, they're separate. That 299 that I'm at right now would be a little lower if in fact we took the time to adjust for offsetting revenue. So take a grant, for example. You get a grant for 60,000, we're appropriating the 60,000 and so you see the expenses going up. But we've got the $60,000 revenue on the other side of that line. And so by all accounts, when you're trying to reach the Board of Finance guidance, if the guidance is 3.5 or if it's 2.82 or whatever it is, it should be net, not of your main revenues, but it should be net of your offsetting revenue. So if we fund Dial-A-Ride with some money from the trust, or if we find, let's say we fund Meals on Wheels with $7,500 from the Darling Trust, just for example. I've appropriated the 7,500. Had those expenses increased, they would have increased my line and made it harder to reach guidance. So we didn't bother to go through that exercise because we're under 3 in any event. But just so, if somebody asks me personally, hey, Mark, why did the Board of Ed come in at 277? It's because they got a lot of offsetting revenue. And in fact, they may very well, I don't know, I haven't looked at the superintendent's budget, but they may have used non-lapsing funds. A municipal side doesn't have a non-lapsing fund that we can pull $200,000 out to offset expenses. So we're very proud of that 299. And I would ask this board in closing that when you look at the 1 or 2 initiatives that we're asking for, as we get into that during the workshop, that you frame your opinions on that around the success of the team in hitting these numbers and in minimizing that mill rate increase. That's the backdrop against which we'd ask you to make a decision on the one or two things that we'd like to do.
So question about for the and this is really probably an Amy question. Because the education operating budget, is that set? Because I know they haven't fully adopted their budget yet.
Right, that was.
So that's not necessarily an accurate number per se.
No, it's what the superintendent proposed, and then
Right.
we had a health insurance adjustment, it became
Correct.
another number, and then they'll take final action at their meeting.
Right, because I know where they were landing in their workshop and where they landed at the last Board of Ed meeting, and that was not it, so, okay.
And to your point, Diana, just say there is an opportunity, there are some opportunities that this board could embrace that we haven't had time to do before the presentation deadline. For example, we had put out an RFP on dial-a-ride services for social services. And the two bids came back extremely high, and we don't like either one of them. So we closed that request for proposal and we reissued it with some more data points and an opportunity for bidders to maybe bid on 1 year rather than 3. We made some other changes. That went up just, I think, yesterday, Tom, or the day before. And we've got a bid close date at the 27th. So right now, we've got a placeholder in the budget for dial-a-ride services, and we're hopeful that the actual bids will come in a little lower. And this board, before you recommend a budget to adopt a budget for BOF consideration, you might capture that. Also, one other thing, I think, or two other things, we've got a budget meeting with our trust, Darlene or Belden, on Monday. And some of the things that that are in your budget, we're having conversations with the trust about picking it up. VNA is one example of that. Anything that was cut, we're continuing to look for solutions and to work with this board, whether it's Main Street or VNA or any of the other cuts that we made. If we can find the revenue in other places, we will. So we've got an agenda for our meeting with the trustees, and I'm happy to share that with the board.
So Mark, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
If I'm understanding the new procedure now, because in the past, it was really a net budget where your expenses were offset by your revenues.
Yeah.
In the past, your expenses could be offset by increased permit fees, which would end up changing the 2.77. Is that correct?
It would change the 2.1 impact on the mill rate.
Yeah.
So it's a good question. I think the issue is that when the Board of Finance expresses guidance as an expense side only number, it moves everything off the table.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like last year, we recommended in my budget an increase in, I think, building permit fees. And this board actually said we're gonna, your board said we're gonna increase it even more.
Right.
And the interesting thing is, and I don't have this number,
How
but
did we make out?
I think we were we collected a lot more in revenue than projected, is that right? That was one of the lines that led to a surplus. So the point is that to Stephen, I'm very respectful of, if there are ways to boost revenue, to replace funds that were cut in the town manager's budget, and in fairness, this board can do it. I'm bound by, essentially, it's an expense side equation. Don't come to us with a budget that increases expenses by more than what was 3.5. Net of the insurance changes, it became 2.82. And so it was a moving target. But that's, I'm not saying it's unfair. I'm just saying that was the guidance we were given. But it's, once I give you the recommended budget, this is my budget, you can change it. When you change it, you could change revenue numbers and and some of that could go into capital reserves. Some of it could go back to funding lines that were cut. Mine's just a recommended budget.
Well, we're accountable to the public for the mill rate
Right.
increase,
But
so
so who
But the mill rate
recommends-
wouldn't go up. The mill rate wouldn't go up if you
that's.
found.
No, I'm
a
just
re-
saying,
Right.
that's really what we're gonna hear from people is the bottom line.
How do we get someone to review revenue opportunities?
Right.
Increased revenue opportunities? Do we go to Amy for that or you or?
You go to me, and I will say this, in my first budget, I was kind of, the smoke screens were don't touch revenue. A few things jumped out at me. I remember I started in January, the budget was due to you 8 weeks later, so I didn't have a lot of time. A couple of things jumped out at us and we made that point and refer you back to that budget message. In year 2, I put my toe in the water on revenue and we did make some changes, one of which was the building permit. We recommended that you changed it and adopted it and so forth. So in year one, the answer was no. In year two, I did some things, but in year three, the guidance was 3.5, that was what we're focused on. And we've actually focused over the last 3 months, Steve, on cuts, whether it was EBB at the library or whether it was anywhere else. We even notified our labor unions that there could have been layoffs. And had we not hit the target, there would have been. There would have been.
So are we still gonna get any advising on opportunities as well as far as our
We'd be happy to
fees?
take a look at it. I think, and Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, my budget did slightly increase recording fees, or what was it?
There was a few small.
A few small things. We'd be happy to take a deeper look, and we would love to partner with you on that.
That's the pay-to-play concept.
Yep, absolutely.
But I have
And I know that Parks and Rec, Tom, you increased a couple of things too, didn't you, for
Yeah.
on the memorial pool?
The memorial pool's now in the revenue, in the Parks and Recreation Fund, so that's no longer in the general fund. I mean, there's a number of ways that we tried to minimize our impact.
I have a couple questions just
Yeah,
on
please.
capital, cause that was where I was able to focus, cause I had it last week. If we have questions for the BOE on a lot of the capital items, will Jason be here or somebody be here to address them? I mean, I can send them in advance, but just some questions that came up last year on the paving, questions on the track, we had asked for an RFP, some of us had put that out. Things like that, should we communicate them in advance so you have them for?
I certainly can talk to the superintendent. We chat, almost daily, but I recommend that maybe you
Send
let Jeff Tyndall know that you'd
Okay.
like to get
Well,
some.
I'll send them to you guys and
Sure.
and they,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I know
Melissa.
some of these, when we were on the Zoom, we had asked about, and in the answer that I'm looking under the description, I'm gonna pick on the turf and track resurfacing. They didn't address, actually, they addressed the opposite of what I asked.
Right.
And I still have the same concern and I still want the same information and it has yet to be.
So Wendy, please just communicate with me
Yeah, I will.
how you would like it, because
I might just put them in a question and send them to you guys and say, these are for the BOE.
Okay.
And add them to the question list.
So since I brought it up on the Board of Ed and we talked about it earlier, for those that didn't watch the Board of Ed meeting last Monday, where they were landing rather than, and again, it's not to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm looking at they were landing anywhere between, school bus got that, 2.93 and 3.24 is where they were landing. And they were not coming in at 277. They were really floating around 293. But maybe we can go over 3 and be close enough, and where they're gonna land, I don't fully know, but that's where they were. I have my Board of Ed budget book right here. So that's where they were landing, and that does affect
Right,
ultimately where we're gonna land.
right. So the packet that is going out, I believe it goes out tomorrow. I just put the exhibit together today, so I have it fresh. The 324 is with the health insurance increase, and then
Right.
they did propose about 400,000 in cuts, and it'll bring it back down to the 279.
Okay.
So if they approve those cuts, we'll be.
Cause I know they had talked about it and there was a few that they were still questioning,
Right, exactly. There were
those
some
last
that weren't
two.
there yet. There were some that were okay with it, so we
I
will see
I
what
think,
happens.
if I can, just mainly for a few
And I'll
of
be
you
there
that
tomorrow.
know my feeling on this. We got guidance from the BOF with respect to that 3.5, and also, and Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, a willingness to provide reserves, health reserves for a total of $1 million.
Right.
800,000 to help the BOE and 200,000 for us, right? And my budget factors that in, but here's my point. I think to me, I don't wanna speak for anyone else, but it kind of sent the signal that there was an understanding that we should be held harmless to exorbitant, at least on our side, because we don't have any control over that, right? So when it's your budget and you're presenting to the Board of Finance, I think that's a question for them, is to what extent can health reserves be used to offset dramatic increases in healthcare? And let me just say, when it came to debt service, both this board and the Board of Finance endorsed what I'm suggesting, and you used reserves to smooth increases in debt service. It's the same concept. If you're gonna smooth debt service for the benefit of your taxpayers, you also could use health reserves to smooth dramatic and unpredicted increases. But what my budget does, and I think the BOE has got a similar challenge, is at the 11th hour with I think 14 days to go, we found out it was a 14% increase. And I've told some of you the story that we had just cut 100,000 from the budget, and we were told that this was going to be 150 going the other way. It was a very depressing day. So the question is that an appropriate use of reserves? And I'd encourage the board to think about that as you deliberate on your budget.
I have a question for, didn't we use health reserves a couple years back for something? Yeah, we did. And we were gonna use capital reserves and we went through that whole thing to use health reserves.
Right, we did.
Well, my
Yeah.
takeaway will be, and I'll wrap up, Chair, my takeaway is to the team tomorrow to look for some revenue adds that we would share with you at the budget workshop. We'll be happy to do that. I'll also share with the board the agenda for our upcoming discussion with the the trustees, about perhaps getting some help for some of the things that we have. And if we on our side can think of anything else that might be helpful to you as you deliberate, we will get it to you as soon as we can.
One other question, I have three more. We know that I think we've heard that the fire company is going to have a mill rate increase too.
Yeah, I really can't comment, but
No, I know, but I'm just saying, we're not the only part of the equation here, right? To the bottom line, to the residents.
That's true.
A question just for Amy on the motor vehicle, cause the mill rate's lower than our mill rate, the 32.46, I think that's where it is now. Do we get money from the state to cover that difference? And is it fully funded or is it not fully funded?
So it's technically not fully funded. I mean, I can estimate it and get pretty close, but they do their own calculation. So in the past when we did the budget, the 32.46, we would have to split with the fire district because the money would only come to the town. So we'd give them the credit, but now they get their own grant funding from the state. So we actually get to take the first 32.46 will be reimbursed, and then the fire district will be reimbursed the remainder for what they're out.
Okay, cause they had to pay us, wasn't there a mix up, was it last year or 2 years ago? Maybe last year. On that. And then, just the economic development, Main Street Partnership, new position, I think that's something that we'll definitely be revisiting.
Not a new position, just a reassignment, Chair.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah, I've got comments, but I'm saving them because there's things to dig into on the 28th.
Okay, Kevin, anything?
I think it's still early to have a lot of comment.
Right.
And I look forward to the other discussion. So that's all for me.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Curtis because he's up there, I don't wanna forget him. You're okay, Curtis?
No, I think we covered most of it. I mean, you have the 28th coming up, so we'll go in depth on everything then. So thank you for your time.
Thank
Okay.
you, Kurt.
Steve, you
Thanks.
good? Mike, everybody?
I'm good.
Good,
Okay.
not a question. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for all the staff that sat through all this. I think I can ask for a motion to adjourn. I don't think there's any.
So moved.
All those
Nice
in
job.
favor say aye.
Aye.
For over 40 years, SCM has been the voice of our town.
Bringing us together through local programming,
Education and live broadcasts.
SEM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community.
Ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings.
And celebrating milestones.
like our high school graduations.
But today, SEM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SEM receives less revenue.
Even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open.
Continues to educate our youth.
And keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SEM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
For generations to come.
Visit our website
Or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
Your schools,
and your government come together.